We're up to our final live draft of the offseason, and this one is for the people. Welcome into Fantasy Baseball today. Frank Stampfl joined by Scott White and Chris Towers. Today on the show, a 16-team live head-to-head categories draft with all kind of wacky categories. OBP instead of batting average, net stolen bases instead of just regular stolen bases, quality starts instead of wins, saves plus holds instead of saves. And this is a league famously created by Heath Cummings. And Scott is a huge fan.
Scott hates it. Scott is such a grouch right now.
I used to call Heath Cummings Master Troll, and I feel like this was his final act of trollery, kind of his troll legacy to, just everything about this league gets under my nerves. We made it worse last year by changing it from saves to saves plus holds. I'm the one who suggested it because it's already a lost cause anyway. Let's just throw all the crappy rules all of you listeners use out there and see what comes out. Everyone's always like, why don't you ever do this format and this form? All right, well, this is a format devoted to all your crappy rules, all in one.
You know, the thing is, your favorite format is points, and this most closely replicates points, at least in a head-to-head category / roto format. I mean, you don't get points for doubles and triples, but like everything else is pretty pointsy.
Why didn't Heath make home run slugging percentage?
He could have. We can do it right now. Let's do it. Let's change it on the fly.
Why not?
I actually don't think we can because the room would crash. But
yeah, we could do it.
Yeah, let's not do that. Other details you need to know about this one: weekly head-to-head categories, shallower lineups, one of each infield position, 3 outfielders, 1 utility, no corner or no middle, and then just 7 pitcher spots. You can divvy them up however you want. You can go all relievers. You can go 6-1, 5-2, 4-3, whatever you want to do. I'll be drafting 6th overall. Scott is 10th, and Chris is 13th. So we're all kind of spread out here. Again, this is OBP instead of batting average. And this is one of our listener leagues that the ones that we announced a couple of weeks ago. So lots of creative submissions, and we really do appreciate it. I am going to pull up the draft board right now, and I think we're good to go, Scotty. You can start it up.
All right.
And we're off. It's going to be a fun one.
Now, I say I hate this league. I did win it 2 years ago. But ironically, like that it was fitting because that was my worst year playing fantasy baseball ever, 2021. And of course that would be the year I won this year because it's so against my every instinct.
Shout out to last year's champion, by the way, since we're talking about champions. Scott back in 2021. Last year, Doug Rowe was the winner of this league. For the people. Again, famously created by Heath Cummings over on the now the FFT side. So the first 3 picks in this draft, the first 4 picks, Aaron Judge, Ronald Acuna, Julio Rodriguez, and Jose Ramirez. I am on deck here. And to be totally honest, I have not played in an OBP format. I have not drafted an OBP this entire offseason, unless you want to count head-to-head points. I guess it's not dissimilar, as you were mentioning, Chris.
Well, I think it makes Aaron Judge an even clearer number 1, right? Because he walks a crap load in addition to hitting for a solid batting average. I mean, Aaron Judge isn't normally a clear number 1 in standard 5x5 leagues, but he is to me. And in this format, he probably would be to most everybody.
Okay.
In fact, in NFC drafts over the last week, I pulled this data up earlier. Aaron Judge is now the number 3 player. He is behind Ronald Acuna and Trey Turner over the last week in NFBC leagues, which I found kind of interesting.
Yes, indeed. All right, so I am going to select Juan Soto. I had to read up on the news, catch myself up. Said after playing in a B game Monday that he's, quote, really excited to be healthy to play opening day. Sounds like he's good to go. This is an OBP format. I currently have our buddy Ariel Cohen's ATC projections pulled up with OBP, and they have Juan Soto as the second best player in this format. I hope he's healthy. Let's go.
Yeah.
6th overall.
I was hoping he'd make it to me at 10, people being scared off by the oblique soreness. But alas, I think it was a good pick for the format, Frank.
Yeah.
Good job. I mean, I think Soto's number 6 in 5x5 leagues anyway. When you add that extra OBP perk, where he is the best on base guy since Barry Bonds, probably. At least he was in 2020 and 2021. So I think it makes sense. I was hoping for Jordan Alvarez too. These guys aren't scared off by the injuries. They didn't come to play scared.
They did not. After I took Juan Soto, Kyle Tucker, Jordan Alvarez, Mookie Betts, and Scott, you are on the clock.
Whoo boy. Don't like my choices.
Come on. There's very good players here.
Oh, yeah, there are good players, just players I'm not used to building around. So the best two by my rankings, and these are my standard rankings, would be Shohei Ohtani and Freddie Freeman. They're obviously, when I say these are my standard rankings, they're not optimized for this format. They're not factoring in that it's OBP instead of batting average, among other things. But I can factor that in as the one drafting. And because of that, I'm going to go a little outside of my norms here, and I'm going to take Freddie Freeman.
I like it, Scott.
On-base machine.
Sure is. I'm seeing him as the 5th ranked batter. Again, these are based on projections, but yeah, an OBP does see a little bit of a boost there in Freddie Freeman. So you take one of the lockdown first basemen, the elite names, and just following Freddie Freeman, Vladimir Guerrero. So another first baseman there. For those watching us live on YouTube, thank you for being here. Please like this video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. This is what my hair looks like if you haven't seen it before. Not wearing a hat. Scott and I did an interview with Cal Ripken Jr. earlier. It was amazing. It had some issues with technology. Some things happened obviously while we're going live.
Oh, come on, Frank. Come on, don't lead with the negative.
I know. It's so in my nature to do that. But he was amazing, super nice guy, really fun to talk to. We talked to him about Ohtani and Gunnar Henderson and Mount Rushmore of all-time shortstops. So please go back and check it out. It's on demand. We'll have the audio up in the podcast feed as well by the time that you are listening to this. All right. I don't know if CG is here. I think this is a gentleman named Chris. Yes, he is. And he takes Mike Trout, which is a great pick in OBP. Chris, you are up. And I hope you weren't planning on taking Mike Trout.
I was. Yeah. I was planning on taking Mike Trout. I think he would have been the best player. Chris. So, yeah, I will take Fernando Tatis, 13th overall. I think that's a great place to get him. But I would have rather taken Mike Trout. Yes.
I was actually, if I didn't take Freddie Freeman, I know I said my top 2 players were Freeman and Ohtani. If I didn't take Freeman, I would have taken Tatis. So
Tatis over Trout.
Yeah.
Because I thought you might have considered Trout as well in the OBP format.
Well, the other thing to consider here, and I guess it's parsing a bit since we're talking about the earliest picks, and they're all good. They're all really good at many things, but it is standard head-to-head lineups. It is only 9 hitter spots, so that whole you need to get maximum impact from every spot. I mean, Tatis is, it's hard to say anybody's higher upside than Trout, but at this stage of Trout's career, Tatis, I would say, is, and he's going to fill up 5 categories instead of just 4, Trout not being a base stealer anymore.
Let's talk about this pick that just happened, Bo Bichette. So he goes 14th overall, and that's probably where we would typically see him go in a 5x5 with batting average. Maybe he goes a little bit earlier than that. Power and speed combination normally helps out in batting average. OBP doesn't walk very much in Bo Bichette. But, Chris, what about the possibility of taking Bo Bichette, just trying to rack up the counting stats? Maybe you punt OBP, or is that something you don't want to lock yourself into this early in the draft?
I don't think you're punting OBP. The thing there is, it's not like he's Adolis Garcia. Bo Bichette's not going to have a great OBP, but he's probably going to be pretty close to average. And so if you think about it from a traditional 5x5 perspective, Bobby Witt's not going to help you a ton in batting average, most likely, but he still tends to go in this range because he can still be a super. So I think that's something that when we make the switch to OBP, people can kind of overrate the guys who don't walk, especially if, like Bo Bichette, they're going to hit for a high batting average because, yeah, he's not going to be a huge help in OBP. but it still counts the same as batting average, right? It's one category out of 5 for your hitters. And we're willing to take guys who don't necessarily kill it in batting average all the time. So I do think people can tend to overrate or underrate a guy like Bo Bichette, who will be closer to average in OBP.
Yeah, because the batting average is so good. Unlike maybe Bobby Witt, who
might just be bad in OBP.
Manny Machado and Bobby Witt, who certainly was bad last year, sub 300 OBP. I also wanted to point out within the concept of punting OBP on that subject. These are weekly contests. It's not like a roto league where if you have a bad OBP lineup, you're going to place bad in OBP. There are weeks where even teams that aren't built for OBP will be able to win OBP just because that's the nature of a week of baseball at a time. It's a category that's going to feel pretty random over those small chunks of time. So I don't think you have to look at it as punting. I will say, though, that if you want an OBP standout, even more so than a batting average standout, they're going to dry up quickly. I've experienced this from Tout Wars. It's the true OBP standouts are even less than the true batting average standouts because you have to be good, obviously, at both walking and hitting for average to be a standout in that category.
All right, well, let's catch people up on some picks after Bo Bichette went 14th overall. Shohei Ohtani at 15. Then at the turn, one of you mentioned this, that it was Machado and Bobby Witt, followed by Pete Alonso, Austin Riley, and Chris, you just selected Paul Goldschmidt, who is, frankly, I mean, he's still really good in any format, but he does walk a lot, so I think he's going to help boost your OBP as well. You are muted, sir.
A little bit better in this format. It's not a huge distinction, but it's there. It exists. So I think it's fine to push him up ahead of someone like Rafael Devers, who I assume Scott would have taken there if he was in my spot, right?
I don't know. I mean, Devers isn't as good for OBP.
He's closer to Bo Bichette in that regard.
Yeah.
Like he's been at like 355-ish the last 2 seasons.
And boom, Rafael Devers goes off the board, 21st overall. Yep. And I thought it was Scott's pick, so I thought he got sniped there. But maybe Scott wasn't looking at Rafael Devers anyway. As they like to do in these listener leagues, Scott, Nolan Arenado goes off the board. Another one who doesn't walk very much, but it's going to be a solid batting average and probably closer to an average OBP as well. But
although could be bad.
What's up?
Arenado in 2021, his OBP was 312. Now his batting average was 255. Most of the difference there is a 36-point drop in batting average or whatever from 2022 to 2021. But yeah, that's he's a little bit of a risk there, but I don't have any problem with it really.
Scott, you're up. There are no elite third basemen, at least by my calculation. Maybe you can make the case for one of them. Who are you drafting?
Well, it's a total wild card league, so I'm going to go with a total wild card approach here. I'm taking Corbin Burns. I'm taking the first starting pitcher in this draft. The earliest I've taken a starting pitcher this year. And a lot of it comes down to because there has been this run on high-end third baseman, because there's been a run on high OBP guys, I'm just not as... I don't think in this format the range of hitters stands out here from the pack as much as in like a traditional 5x5 league. Also, fewer hitter spots to fill in general. And I mean, Corbin Burns just fell. So I don't love it. I mean, starting first base, starting with a first base and a starting pitcher with my first 2 picks is just like totally antithetical to my approach this year. But it's a weird league and got to do some
Scott,
weird things.
I do have to ask, and this might be blowing up your spot, and maybe you'll be mad that I asked this, but did you give any thought to Alex Bregman there? He went 21st overall in the points league that we did with our listeners last week. So clearly the people have gotten the message about positional scarcity, and this is the For the People league. So if anybody's
I'm not sure
gotten
this is
the
the league for him, because as I was saying, only 8 hitter spots to fill. Of course, he's better for OBP than a lot of third basemen, better than Riley, better than Arenado. But is he that good at anything else? the counting stats, runs and RBI should be pretty good, but home runs will be, again, week-long contests. So you're talking a 20, maybe 25 homer guy in Bregman. How reliable is that power output going to be from week to week? Is he going to be a net benefit there? Are you going to feel the effects of that, of investing the early pick in him? That's part of the reason I passed up Marcus Semien at this point too. I'd much rather have a big category standout, particularly when we're talking about home runs and stolen bases, than kind of a jack of all trades type who won't reliably do anything in great numbers from week to week.
After Scott took Corbin Burns, we see back-to-back elite starting pitchers, Garrett Cole and then JT Realmuto and Marcus Semien. I am telling you right now that I am considering a complete OBP wildcard pick here, something you normally would not see this early in a draft. And which one of them
I'm intrigued.
I am going to, I already got the outfielder. So I'm going to go ahead and select Matt Olson here. I know first base is typically still pretty deep, but based on the projections that I'm looking at, Matt Olson gets pushed up the board a lot in an OBP format. You know, he's probably going to hit around, 240, 250 in terms of the batting average. But this is someone that typically walks, double-digit % walk rate, and he's going to have a much better OBP. And 2 picks later,
having an absolutely bonkers spring. It's worth pointing out. It may not mean anything. It probably doesn't. But 8 home runs in 17 games, a 1542 OPS for Matt Olson is just
en fuego.
Woof. Yeah, he's been on one for sure.
So the 2 players I was considering were Matt Olson and Kyle Schwarber, and then Schwarber went 2 picks later.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, those were some of the ones I was thinking if I took Burns here, hopefully I'd be looking at that class of hitters.
Right.
But nope, the hitter ranks are being entirely rearranged here since the categories are different, which is reasonable. Not used to seeing it to happen to quite this extent.
And the player that I wanted to take in the 3rd round, thinking that I could get him, was Corey Seager. Not happening because after I took Matt Olson, Max Scherzer went, mentioned Schwarber. Just after that, Corey Seager, 30th overall. Again, another hitter who, I mean, he's still going to hit for a good batting average, we think. I know last year it was a lower batting average, but we have the new shift restrictions. The expected batting average was around 280 for Corey Seager. So if he's hitting 280, he's probably got a 340, 350 OBP, something like that.
I will say he's not as great an OBP guy as I think you would think. He's only been above a 10% walk rate twice in a full season out of 6 of them now. OBP for his career 357 with a 287 on base or batting average. Like, I think Corey Seager's a fine player, but I don't necessarily think he benefits a ton in this format the way you might think.
Other than Xander Bogaerts and maybe Anthony Volpe in an amazing scenario, Seager was probably the best OBP guy at the position, right? I mean, once Trey Turner's not a standout for that either. Yeah, I mean, Corey Seager's probably the best OBP source at shortstop, but I understand what you're saying, where it's for a guy who consistently hits 300, the OBP is more 350, 360 than 380, 390.
All right, don't you do it, Justin Finney, because I have someone in mind, and if you snipe me, we are not friends. After Corey Seager went, Sandy Alcantara and Justin Verlander to finish out round 2. Starting up round 3, Luis Robert, Francisco Lindor, Cedric Mullins, and George Springer. So we are seeing a few players here who typically operate within, mediocre to probably below average OBP in Luis Robert, Lindor, and Cedric Mullins. But if they are the players that we think they could be, and have shown to be in the past, and they probably are going to still put up a lot of counting stats in their respective lineups. George Springer went, Randy Arozarena. We could still be friends, Justin, because I'm going to take the name that Chris mentioned earlier. I think this is probably the right time in OBP, and I'm going to go ahead and take Alex Bregman. So I'm leaning all the way into it. Got Juan Soto, Matt Olson, Alex Bregman. I got probably an elite 3rd baseman in this format, and I'm all right with that. It's not the most, exciting start to a draft, but it's a lot of power and a lot of counting stats. So I am intrigued. After I took Alex Bregman, Ozzie Albies goes. Scott, you started your draft with Freddie Freeman and Corbin Burns. What are you thinking about? You are 2 picks away.
I got a couple players queued up here. And I'm sure if I mention by name, they'll just go pop, pop right away. So I'm not going to do that.
What do you think about my Alex Bregman pick? Is this an appropriate range? 38 overall?
What's that guy's name in Community? I was trying to think.
Magnitude. He's a one-man party.
There you go. That's what I heard when I said pop, pop too. Anyway, I feel confident saying I'm not going to draft a pitcher.
I think that's fair.
Feel pretty confident in that. So what was the specific question you asked me?
Was that an okay time to take Alex Bregman, 38th overall?
Yeah, I would have considered it if he made it to me.
Okay. Speaking of third baseman, going earlier in this format, Ozzie Albies with the next pick, and then Max Muncy, who I know is much better in OBP, but 40th overall. I don't know.
Yeah, I wrote about the biggest differences in ADP at the various sites, and I think Muncy I want to say at ESPN is like way more expensive. Let me see if I can find it, or maybe it was Yahoo. He's way cheaper at ESPN, I guess, because they ding you more for strikeouts. But there was CBS leagues. His ADP is 25 picks higher than consensus, which makes sense because CBS are more points leagues where you get value for OBP, so that makes sense here.
Yeah, and I did read something about Max Muncy that I think should inspire optimism. I'm higher on him than most people. Clearly not the guy who took him 40th overall here, but he kind of cheated to recapture his stroke. The final 2 months of the last season was kind of taking a step back. For some reason, it worked for him, taking a step back in the box to kind of lock into place. But he worked with driveline baseball this offseason, as all Dodgers players are wont to do, and he's got his bat sped up again, and he's looked pretty good this spring. So I think Max Muncy is going to be back to having a typical Muncy season. If that's the case, this pick in round 3 of an OBP league, eligible at 2 weak positions, third and second base, may not look so bad at the end. I'm not sure anybody else was thinking of taking Max Muncy this early, though.
All right, after Max Muncy went Michael Harris, and Scott, you selected Corbin Carroll, who has done a good job walking so far this spring. And I know that you've talked about how impressed you've been with the plate discipline, but obviously he's been a big hype guy during spring training. So now 42nd overall is where you select Corbin Carroll. I'm
contributing to the hype. I think the floor is higher than you'd typically expect from a rookie because I think the steals total is going to be significant. I think he is going to be one of those category standouts that I was talking about wanting earlier. And while also helping me build up a sturdy OBP base between him and Freddie Freeman. Fills a weak position, which I haven't done yet. It's a little bit of a reach, but I'm to the point with Corbin Carroll where I'm okay reaching.
After Corbin Carroll, Emmanuel Class A, 43rd overall. Again, this is saves plus holds. You're still going to get amazing ratios from Emmanuel Class A. And he led baseball in saves last year. The elite closers typically get more saves than the relievers.
I would assume he led baseball in saves plus holds as well.
That sounds like it would be right. I mean, I would have to do
think so, yeah.
But yeah. I think the holds leader last year was AJ Minter with 31
35.
35? Okay. So yeah, typically the saves leader, there are more, the higher saves totals, the higher total normally goes to the saves category, but there's a lot more in the mid tier. So the 10 and 20 plus holds guys, there's a lot more of those than there are saves. So just something to think about as we get further into the draft. After Class A, Spencer Strider, Jacob deGrom, Brandon Woodruff, Aaron Nola. So we got a bit of a pitcher run here. Chris, you selected Jacob deGrom.
Yeah, screw it. I don't have him yet. Why not? Let's get Jacob deGrom. He went 45th overall, which is cheaper than he typically goes. Yes, I know all about the downside, blah, 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 blah. But you know what? Sometimes you just have to take a guy who's fun to root for and fun to have on your team. And, say to hell with being safe and being smart. I want to take Jacob deGrom. And for what it's worth, there are a lot of really smart people who think Jacob deGrom is worth even more than that. His ADP over the last week in NFC drafts is 28.14. So relative to that, it's a steal.
A bunch of nameless, faceless people, but I'm sure they're smart. Yeah, why not?
I would imagine that they are pretty smart. I mean, again, NFBC, these are high stakes leagues, so putting their money where their mouth is. And
I mean, is that itself an indication of? Well, never mind.
I think it's an indication of the stakes involved, and
it is at least that. Yes.
I mean, I am someone who drafts in these leagues, so I mean that tells you everything that you need to know. The first pick of the 4th round is Shane O'Mac. Shane McClanahan.
Here comes the money.
Here we go. Money talk.
Here comes the money.
We are off in round 4 here. What did you guys think of the Emmanuel Class A pick and I don't want to pile on people here, but obviously we have to, analyze the differences between just a saves league and saves plus holds.
Listen, you don't want us to criticize you, don't sign up for the league. That's all I'm saying. Yeah, no, I'm not taking a closer probably, unless it's a really cheap one, unless they go really late, because I think in a saves plus holds league, you can scrap together a decent enough total each week off the waiver wire, namely holds I'm talking about, of course, to win the category often enough to make it worth it.
Yeah, right. I took Class A in my Tout Wars league. I'm trying to find the results now, but I'm pretty sure it was cheaper than that. So I'm not, and the Tout Wars league I'm in is very similar to this one. It's saves plus holds. It's innings pitched instead of wins, and it's OBP instead of batting average. And yeah, I got him at the 8th pick of the 6th round, so I don't mind taking one there, but it's more, like Scott said, it has to be a value to take a relief pitcher, and I don't think it was there.
Before we get into the rest of the picks in round 4, let's take our first break here on Fantasy Baseball Today.
You need to know what you're getting into. This is not cops and robbers. The enemy is everywhere, but he can't be seen.
Like me? None of this makes sense.
It's a mind game, John.
What have you gotten me into?
I can't tell the difference between what's real and what's not.
Ever dream about buying a Fantasy Baseball Today podcast shirt and then jumping over to get a Yellowstone whiskey glass or Top Gun Maverick hat? Well, now you can do that with the brand new Paramount shop, which offers a mountain of merch from the Paramount shows and movies that you love. Shop official apparel, drinkware, and accessories inspired by over 150 fan favorite titles: Paw Patrol, Yellowstone, Top Gun, Star Trek, South Park, SpongeBob SquarePants, and your favorite CBS Sports podcast like Pick Six, Fantasy Football Today, and of course, Fantasy Baseball Today. Scan the QR code in the top right corner if you're watching on YouTube, or head to ParamountShop.com. Paramount Shop, where products are paramount. After Shane McClanahan, we saw Jazz Chisholm, Christian Javier. Chris, you selected Will Smith, and then Shane Bieber goes off the board. Will Smith is someone who routinely has a very good OBP. Though we only start one catcher, this is probably appropriate. 52nd overall, Chris.
Yeah, and he should be a good source of OBP. He's not like a huge walk guy, but he's usually in the 10 to 12% range. So he should be very helpful in OBP, especially relative to the other catchers that are out there, most of whom will be pretty bad in OBP. So it's always nice to get help from the catcher position rather than hope your head's above water, which, even in an era where I think we all agree that catcher is deeper than it normally is, that's relatively speaking. And if, a guy like Dalton Varsho wasn't catcher eligible, he probably goes 50 picks later than he does. So, I'm happy to get a catcher who I think will help.
After Will Smith, Shane Bieber, and Kevin Gausman off the board, Scott, you're up with 15 seconds.
It's time for me to draft a player I haven't been able to invest in yet this year, despite being pretty high on him. O'Neal Cruz. This is the chance. This is the draft where I got to do all those things I haven't done yet. And it continues with this pick. O'Neal Cruz, in theory, could be a multi-category standout, right? And I don't have a huge power bat yet with Freddie Freeman and Corbin Carroll being my top 2 hitters drafted. Hopefully he'll be a helping speed too. Probably won't be great in OBP, not only because the batting average is suspect with all the strikeouts, though. Strikeout rate has been much better this spring. But also not, at least as a rookie, just walked at a 7.8, right? Had some higher rates in the minors. So I don't, like, I do think there's a scenario where O'Neal Cruz gives me like a 340 OBP, but I'm not counting on it. I don't think he needs to, based on my construction so far. It's more about getting impact production at shortstop and potentially, hopefully, high-end power.
Scott, I don't want to name drop, obviously, so apologies. But I'm looking through the quality starts leaders from last year. The Mount Rushmore. I mean, if there's a format to take those guys, quality start league. I mean, I
you just drove up the cost of all of them, Frank. Thank you very much.
I apologize. But yeah, I'm just looking through it now. I don't have a starting pitcher yet, so I'm just trying to figure out who the quality start leaders were from last year. And as I draft some of those names, I'll point them out. After Scott took O'Neal Cruz, Tommy Edman goes off the board, and 2 more picks, and then I'm up.
Probably. And it's worth noting the change from wins to quality starts does lessen the ability to roll out a Marmol strategy. Because in a Marmol strategy, you're not going to get a lot of wins, but you have the chance to vulture a handful in any given week. You can't vulture a quality start as a relief pitcher. Now, a lot of starters in this era aren't getting quality starts very often anyway, but you can't. You're never going to be able to win the quality starts category with a Marmol strategy where you could at least have a chance in a more traditional wins-based format.
All right. After Tommy Edman, Xander Bogaerts goes off the board, and then Alek Manoah. Alek Manoah tied for second in quality starts last season with 25. And I think I'm going to go ahead and take my first starting pitcher. I'm going to go a little bit further down the list here, and I'm going to take Max Fried, who, frankly, he's good in both quality starts and wins leagues because goes typically pretty deep into his starts, pitches for the Atlanta Braves, so lots of run support there. But Max Fried last year, 21 quality starts, and that was in only 30 starts. So he didn't have as much as your typical ace. He didn't get the 32, 33 starts last year. So 21 for 30 in quality starts. Go ahead and grab my first starting pitcher, Max Fried, round 4 of a 16-team league. Feel pretty good about that. All right. Rolling on here. In case you didn't know, probably should have mentioned this earlier, this is going to be a 2-part podcast once again. So, be on the longer side here on the live stream.
Only 2.
Yeah. Do you want to go 3?
I mean, 16 team league, buddy. This is going to be a long one.
It is. Yeah. We might have 2 hour and a half parts here. It'll be a longer one.
We are creeping along. Oh, look, Gunnar Henderson just went.
Yeah.
I was hoping.
And Vinny P, baby.
Vinny P.
I was like, there aren't many players like Vinny Pasquantino. We think he's going to be good for batting average to begin with, but when you add OBP, I mean, guy's so good at drawing walks. I'm a little surprised he lasted this long, 63rd overall. I would have given serious consideration to taking him over O'Neal Cruz if I hadn't already filled first base with Freddie Freeman. Adley Rutschman right after him, another good OBP source. So they may be taking a while to pick, but these players seem to know what they're doing with regard to the format change.
I thought about going Adley as well, and then I was reminded of last week when we did our head-to-head points listener league. And when I took Will Smith earlier, and then those awesome catchers were there later on in the draft. So I didn't want to do it again. But it is a great pick. And Adley Rutschman last year, a 13.8% walk rate, 254 batting average, but 362 OBP for Adley Rutschman. So plays up very well in OBP, but also in a head-to-head points league, because even if he doesn't hit for home runs, it's going to hit a lot of doubles. That is something that Adley Rutschman excelled at last year. And then the next pick was Wander Franco, who went 65th overall. Let's check out Wander Franco's page and see the latest update. I know that he is dealing with...
He's ready to go for opening day. He did batting practice today, said he's excited for the opener. So he's good to go.
It does knock some of the luster off, though, Chris. I wrote about Wander
Sure.
Franco and Breakouts 2.0, and probably need to lower him a little bit just because there's a little bit more risk now. Dealing with this right quad injury, it's something that Wander Franco dealt with last year as well. And frankly, I think it's something that really derailed the season. I think he was kind of dealing with it off and on all season.
Yeah,
So
and he's someone. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say it's worrisome for Franco.
Yeah, and he's someone that we would hope will be a decent contributor in stolen bases. But if he's dealing with the leg injury that lingers, maybe he won't be quite as much of a contributor. So it's a concern for sure with Wander Franco. I wouldn't take him there, but in an OBP league, like he's someone who could emerge as a true OBP standout.
All right, after Wander Franco, Brian Reynolds and Dylan Cease, followed by Willie Adames, 68th overall. Taking another peek here at the pitchers.
No discounts at shortstop in this draft, which is typically in a league where you're only starting shortstops and not middle infielders. I think we would expect to see shortstops get pushed down the board. That's what we saw in the points league. But it's worth noting, this is a 16-team league. And one thing that we've talked about is shortstop is really deep if you play in a 12-team league. But my 16th ranked shortstop is Nico Horner. Now, you could swap Nico Horner for Anthony Volpe. I think Anthony Volpe is, it's reasonable to put him up there. But either way, like, there is a drop-off. I would say it happens before that. Jeremy Pena, even potentially Tim Anderson in a format like this. So, there might be 16 really good shortstops. It depends on how bullish you are on Anthony Volpe, I guess.
Yeah, there's a good chance the shortstop or two is taken to be somebody's utility player too. You always got to guard against that. I'm happy to have one already in O'Neal Cruz, but there are some good ones out there still. It's not too late.
By the way, I hope everyone drafting is listening. Tristan McKenzie has a strain of his right teres major muscle back of the shoulder. Will be shut down for throwing for 2 weeks.
Oh.
Sidelined for up to 8 weeks overall.
Wow. Oh, geez. All right, so some breaking news there on Tristan McKenzie. Shut down for at least 8 weeks. We're at the end of March, so we're looking at, oh, man, he's going to need a ramp-up period. It might be the second half of the season.
No. He's shut down from throwing for 2 weeks. He's out for 8 weeks.
Okay, so yeah.
Maybe comes back in late May.
Late May, early June. All right.
So probably like a later, similar timetable to Tyler Glass now, but probably a little later maybe at this point. So I'm dropping him behind Tyler Glass now at least.
Okay. Yeah, I was updating my rankings just before we did this draft here. So earlier on Monday, and I kind of have like an injury tier here. Kyle Wright, maybe it's a little bit unfair to lump him in with these guys, but Kyle Wright at 47, Severino at 48, Tyler Glass now at 49. And I think Tristan McKenzie will probably drop even behind that group. So going to be outside of the top.
Yeah, I dropped him to 60.
Yeah, outside of the top 50 starting pitchers at the least for Tristan McKenzie. All right, let's catch people up on some picks after Willie Adames. Salvador Perez, we know much lower OBP than we'd like, but someone who can lead the position in home runs and RBI. I took Yu Darvish last year, was tied for second in baseball with 25 quality starts. So I go back-to-back pitchers. Maybe I'll regret that. We'll see. I've got Max Fried and Yu Darvish with back-to-back picks. Jose Abreu, Byron Buxton, Starling Marte, Jordan Walker, and Carlos Correa. Scott, talk to me. 74th overall.
For Jordan Walker. Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. I did not want another league where I missed out on a third baseman. Obviously, Walker is going to go earlier in this draft, I would expect, than any of the ones we've done previously, now that he officially does have the job. Gunnar Henderson was already gone. Even Max Muncy was already gone. Yeah, I didn't want to push my luck. I think we'll see how the rest of the team turns out, but I'm pleased with the pick, I think.
Jordan Walker.
Going real youth movement, going real trendy, buzzy players in this draft. My last three picks being Corey Corbin Carroll, O'Neal Cruz, and Jordan Walker.
And for those wondering about the OBP, last year in the minors for Jordan Walker, 119 games at AA, he hit 306 with a 388 on base percentage, 10.8% walk rate. So power and speed, and if everything works out, probably a pretty good OBP as well for Jordan Walker. After Scott took him, Carlos Correa, Teoscar Hernandez, and Chris, fantastic pick. I was debating him or Yu Darvish, the player who led all of baseball with quality starts last year. That is Framber Valdez.
Yeah, I'm happy to get Framber Valdez. He's my number 2 starting pitcher. It's the draft is throwing me off a little bit just because it is 16 team league. So I'm like 76th, 78th overall, whatever it was. That's a decent spot to get Framber Valdez, and it's like, oh, that's my 5th player and my 2nd pitcher. So it is just like a different.
Yeah,
it's maybe it's just because like the only other 15 team league I drafted this year was a slow draft. And so this is the first time I'm really drafting this deep, like live. And so it does feel a little different.
And I love this pick too. I thought I needed to check the news to see if something happened to Dalton Varsho because he goes 79th overall. One pick after Alejandro Kirk. Varsho's walk rate is not great, but still, that seems too late for a catcher eligible player that could go, I don't know, 25-15, 25-20.
Yeah, I mean, he had 27 and 16 last year with a 302 OBP, and it's like, yeah, you'd rather have a higher OBP from, every lineup spot. But if you have to take a hit at OBP, catcher's the spot to do it, where, of the impact bats, very few of them are going to be good OBP sources. That was part of why I took Will Smith when I did, but it's, Salvador Perez isn't going to be a great, even like Real Muto's a good OBP guy because he's a good hitter, but he's not like a standout in OBP necessarily. So you can take a hit there.
I mean, I think it's perfectly fine for Varsho to go where he went, but when he is a clear detriment in that category beyond what he is in batting average, and then okay, he's a catcher who steals bases. How many bases did he steal last year? 16, right? 16 divided between 27 weeks. I mean, you're not real. You can't really count on any steals from Varsho when you're breaking it down week by week. That's not really factoring into the discussion. So I get taking Adley Rutschman over him with the high OBP, Salvador Perez over him with the high home run and RBI total. I get it. And obviously I passed up Dalton Varsho with my last pick too for Jordan Walker. But if Dalton Varsho had made it back to me in round 6, I absolutely would have jumped on that.
But Alejandro Kirk probably should not go ahead of him.
Yeah, right. No, I'd rather have Varsho than Kirk.
Right. All right.
In this league. At
the turn, we saw Josh Hader and Andres Jimenez. So now we are into round 6. Adolis Garcia. We know the deal. He's probably going to be 300 OBP if he's lucky. I don't know. Sub 300 OBP, but one of, I believe, 4 players to go 25-25 last year. So you are getting power and speed. I know it's harder to predict when those steals are going to happen in a head-to-head format, but Adolis Garcia should give you a lot of them. And after that, Devin Williams here in round 6, who should give you good ratios, lots of strikeouts, and now the closer for the Brewers. So hopefully lots of saves as well. Chris, you're up. And
I am up.
After you make your pick, explain your team name too.
Yeah, my pick is Chris Bryant, who is sort of like obviously not like Scott's because Scott's taking the young guys who are exciting, but Bryant's someone that I haven't drafted as much as I wanted to. And this is one of my last opportunities. I don't know about you guys. I have one draft after this. I have a salary cap auction tomorrow night. And then I'm done. And I got one night off before the season starts. I feel like I've done a mock draft or a draft every night over the last 2 weeks. And, Chris Bryant's someone that I think is going to have a very good bounce back season. We've seen some really really impressive quality of contact metrics from him in spring training. 1085 OPS. Yes, we'll, kind of skip over the fact that he's already had a little bit of back soreness in spring training. Maybe it's the cold weather, or the altitude. That wouldn't make me feel better because he plays at altitude. Scratch that one. Either way, I'm sure he's fine. But I wanted Chris Bryant on my team. As for the team name, we got some great team names in this draft, by the way. I just want to do some shout outs here. We got Oh Sandy Baby. We got Lego My Gallegos. Those are you two. I'm going with Lavender Haze. It's a picture of Austin Hayes with a little lavender filter. I don't know. Anybody remembers the Springsteen of her generation, Taylor Swift. It's from her new album, Midnight's, out everywhere on Atlantic Records or something like that. I don't know. But we've also got the little Buff Boys in the draft room. Love that one. What a crop. We got keeping the legacy of Heath Cummings alive with Yasmani Money, Tomas Problems in the draft room. So I'm loving the team names.
You mentioned my team name last year, of course. Huge fan of Sandy Alcantara. Now I've turned my back on him, so I'm a complete fraud. But I've got the gif of Sandy from Greece in there, and a soundbite that we actually haven't heard in a long time.
Sandy? Tell me about it, stud.
After Chris Bryant, Julio Urias, Ryan Presley, and it appears we are stuck, or maybe not.
Okay,
Is that the pick you wanted, Scott?
I think we're going again. Yeah, that's who I had queued up. It wasn't letting me pick it, but I think we're going again.
All right, Robbie Ray. He is someone who's gained a little bit of helium here in spring. Apparently, the velocity has been up, and experimenting with a new splitter, as is the entire Seattle Mariners pitching staff. But I find you drafting a lot of Robbie Ray, Scott.
It's been a strikeout machine this spring, and he had 212 strikeouts last season. A little worrisome with the ERA, I guess. But I care more about the counting stats in a head-to-head categories league than the ratio stats, because I feel like the ratio stats are so unpredictable from week to week. If I'm investing in pitcher, I want him to be a big strikeout guy. It's part of the reason I took Corbin Burns in round 2, and now Robbie Ray, same thing. Even when he doesn't pitch well, the strikeouts should give me a chance of winning that category. Julio Urias going 2 picks earlier, 85th overall. That's one of those picks where you're like, what in the world is going on? How is Julio Urias still there at the range we're taking Andres Jimenez? And I mean, I just took Jordan Walker last round. But remember, it is a quality starts league, and 10 of Urias' starts last year, 10 of them, a third of them, less than 6 innings. So he didn't even give himself a chance at a quality start in those starts. Doesn't mean he's a bad pick at 85th overall. I was crossing my fingers he'd make it to me and I'd take him over Robbie Ray. But that explains why he lasted longer in this league than usual.
After Robbie Ray, Tim Anderson goes off the board. Someone, again, who does not walk very much, but he's going to hit for a higher batting average. That helps the OBP. I mean, we're not talking a 300 OBP here for Tim Anderson. The guy's probably going to hit 300 or close to it. And even with the lower walk rate, it's probably giving you like a, 315, 320 OBP. It's not great.
Well, I mean, he's usually between 335 and 355.
Oh, all right. So even better than I thought. Mm-hmm. Go Tim Anderson, go.
Just will he stay healthy?
Yes, that is a fair question.
Since the breakout, Tim Anderson's hit 347 OBP over the past 4 seasons. Now that's with a 318 on batting average. So, 61 walks over 4 seasons is pretty bad, even for a guy who's missed as much time as he has. But yeah, if he's Tim Anderson, he's such an outlier in BABIP in particular that he's going to give you a decent on-base percentage either way.
After Tim Anderson, Zach Gallen and Joe Musgrove. Musgrove will start the season on the IL, but looking to make his debut either April 11th or April 16th. And someone who typically does give us a lot of quality starts as well.
His price is basically back to where it was pre-injury. I was looking this up earlier. His ADP prior to the injury at NFC was 82-ish. Over the last week, it's 88. So pretty much where it needs to be.
Are you guys ready?
I'm ready. Hit me.
It's Volpening Day, baby.
Oh, I like it. 91st overall makes me feel like less of a sucker for taking Jordan Walker 74th overall or whatever it was.
I'm just never going to have Anthony Volpe, I guess.
Internally, I was so nervous because ever since my last pick, I told myself I want Volpe with the next pick. I don't have a shortstop yet. I don't have any don't have many steals. I have Soto. I've got Bregman, and I've got Matt Olson. So really no steals there. Volpe, we know everything he's done this spring. He's got 9 walks. He's got an OBP over 400. And he's someone who typically has walked a lot in the minors as well. So It's early. I get it. There's definitely risk involved. He's a rookie. You could say that about a lot of rookies, all rookies. But if it works out like we think it will for Volpe, I think 260, 270 batting average. Maybe that's optimistic, but well over 300 OBP and lots of steals. So
Yeah.
that's
And, one comp that I was thinking of for him would be like Jake McCarthy, who I feel like the interest level in him has kind of died down as spring training has gone on. And, the more, we've grown more open to the idea that they're going to be plentiful steals, but like those two players could be pretty similar. And McCarthy's going around here, maybe a little later, but you can tack on a little upside for Volpe and get him to that spot. Like I do think Volpe's probably his biggest impact is likely to be steals as a rookie. He 50 for 57, I think, last year, which is just a really, really impressive number, even though he's not necessarily a great athlete. So yeah, he's that's the place he's likely to be the biggest outlier or biggest contributor this year.
And I want to point out again, there's risk involved with drafting rookies. I tweeted out yesterday that I think if you want Volpe, you've got to take him around 100 or just inside the top 100 picks. And I was met with a lot of, pushback. He only hit 236 last year in 22 games at AAA. Mind you, that's a really small sample size, but the numbers don't lie. Yes, he hit for a low batting average. There's risk involved. I get that, but I think there's a lot of upside as well. And if you want to get somebody with this much helium at this point in the spring, you've got to pay up. And now I know it's a 16-team league, but it is shallower rosters too. So you'd actually be surprised. I think there's going to be some, not great, but I think the waiver wire will be okay in a league like this.
Now, not to belabor the point here with Anthony Volpe, but since it is kind of an oddball draft that we're doing here, maybe when we have our bigger audience than any of the other mock drafts, you took him ahead of Dansby Swanson. You wouldn't have taken Anthony Volpe ahead of Dansby Swanson in a traditional 5x5 league, would you, or would you have?
Probably not. I'm not really a Swanson guy this year. I wrote him up in Bust 2.0. I probably wouldn't do that. Maybe I would just wait a little bit longer for someone else to take Swanson.
But you can't necessarily count on that happening. Like, as you were saying, somebody is probably going to reach up and take Volpe inside the top 100 as you did.
Right.
And so if you just like him straight up more than Swanson, you may have to do that.
I think I would.
You think you would have done it, even without the OBP factor here for Volpe, and us thinking that's going to be better for him than batting average.
It could be an extremely foolish call, taking Volpe over someone like Dansby Swanson, but Swanson slowed down in the second half last year. It was a career year, obviously. He's moving to a much worse lineup, so the counting stats, I think, are going to take a step back. Maybe I'm wrong, but I've been kind of fading Dansby Swanson this all offseason, and we'll see if that works out for me. I am on the clock, so I should probably stop yapping and figure out who I want to take here. I will catch people up on picks in just a second, which once I figure out what I need to do. Okay, I need a second baseman. There's probably not any of those good for OBP. Maybe
there's some risk of. Okay.
Maybe. Outfield, how are we looking? It's kind of drying up. Not great. There's an interesting name down there. Oh, geez. What do I want to do? Catcher still looks pretty good.
You got 12 seconds to decide, son.
I'm going to go ahead and take my boy. Get your guys. And I'm going to take Jonathan India.
Wow.
It's a little bit early at 102, but
I was really worried you were going to take a second baseman, but not that one.
No. I probably should figure out how many IL spots we have, because that might have determined who I should have taken instead. But Jonathan India, when he was at his best 2 years ago, National League Rookie of the Year, he walked a lot, leading off for the Cincinnati Reds, and a little bit of power, a little bit of speed. And I keep drafting Jonathan India. I got him in the NFBC main event as well. So I guess I'm all in on the bounce back for Jonathan India.
By the way, I assume you were referring to Jose Altuve when you were talking about IL spots, and shocked to see his value in NFC drafts, 187.4 over the last week. That just I don't know. Maybe I'm too high, but that just I mean, you don't have IL spots in NFBC leagues, so
Right.
that's part of it. But
injury absences in NFBC are especially punishing.
Yeah.
And
15-team league, no IL spots. That's really tough to get around. Yeah.
We have 4 IL spots in this league. But I mean, Altuve, normally I was thinking we're at pick 104 here. Normally I was thinking about this range is where I'd look to take him. There's talk today they might start him on the 60-day IL, which would lock him out for sure until June.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't have that hope of him coming back the last couple weeks in May, I don't know. It becomes a less attractive pick. I don't think I'm going to take him here with my next pick. Somebody might end up doing it before it gets back to me in round 8, and I'll be okay with that if that happens.
All right. Well, I mentioned I was going to catch people up. Let's do that. There have been a lot of picks. We talked a lot about Volpe. That was in the middle of round 6. After that, Kershaw, Nestor Cortez, Stephen Kwan, Tyler O'Neill, and Carlos Rodon. It's a good pick. 96 overall for Rodon. Through another bullpen session. I think he got up to 30 pitches here on Monday, and reportedly feels okay. All good for now. Carlos Rodon trending the right way. Perhaps late April, early May for him. We get into round 7, and we've got Taylor Ward. It's a good pick. I think he's going to walk a lot. A lot of counting sets, too, in that Angels lineup. Nate Lowe, Logan Webb, Anthony Rizzo does get a little bit of a boost in OBP. Giancarlo Stanton. I took Jonathan India, perhaps a little early. Masataka Yoshida, Christian Walker, and CJ Crone. Scott, you are on the clock. Pick 106 in the 7th round.
Yeah, I think I'm just going to keep riding the helium train here. Take another guy that normally gets drafted earlier than I get a chance to take him as much as I like him. And another guy whose value is elevated by it being an OBP league, and that's Lars Nootbaar.
Ah!
My second outfielder.
Nope.
Right in the heart.
A pick before Christian Yelich, it turns out.
I was debating him versus Jonathan India. That one might backfire.
It is like Yelich versus Nootbaar is kind of an interesting one because, like, I feel like if Lars Nootbaar has the season Christian Yelich had last year, we'll all view it as a resounding success.
Right.
And everyone's kind of like, ugh, Christian Yelich, he's so boring. And it's like, I get it. He is. But, you know, he had 14 homers, 19 steals, and a 355 OBP with 99 runs. Like that'd be a pretty good outcome for Lars Nootbaar. I think in a best case scenario, we might be hoping for better, but there's also, I think, a wider range of potential outcomes there.
Well, that's what I was thinking because I saw Yelich was out there still, and Yelich himself, a player who's elevated in OBP leagues because he walks a lot. But I decided that there is a playing time issue for Nootbaar. Leaving that out of it, presuming Nootbaar plays close to every day, his most likely scenario is probably a lot like what Christian Yelich's expected scenario is too. But I do think, I guess at this point, I'm saying it's more likely Nootbaar reaches his ceiling than Yelich does.
I could see it. I think it's sort of giving the unproven guy credit for upside because we haven't seen him. But like I do think Christian Yelich still has upside. Like I don't think it's the likeliest outcome, but if Christian Yelich had a 25 homer season, it wouldn't shock me at all. He still hits the ball really, really hard.
He's done some interesting things this spring too, Chris. I believe all 3 of his home runs have gone to the opposite field this year, which is so interesting for Yelich. So lifting the ball to left field for Yelich, it's kind of surprising to me. Like, I don't know. Obviously, I think, pulling the ball and pulling it in the air is ideal for power. But the fact that all 3 of his home runs have gone to the opposite field makes me feel a little bit more encouraged about the power of the season.
Well, right? He's also the kind of guy who he still has excess raw power. He's not necessarily a guy who I think needs to pull the ball a ton to maximize his power. It's more about getting the ball in the air. I think if he gets the ball into the air to center field, it's going to go out because he hits the ball so hard.
Yeah, but at the same time, I mean, what have we been saying about Alec Boehm and Brian Hayes, 2 guys who've shown more power this spring, like Yelich, have always had that tendency to hit the ball hard, but without the power production to go along with it. And the storyline for both of them with them hitting home runs this spring is they're turning on the ball faster. They're pulling it in the air with their time. They're timing it up in a way that allows them to pull it in the air. So it wasn't even so much a swing change elevating the ball. They're just turning on the ball better, and that's allowing them to pull it, and that's leading to the sort of contact that's more likely to result in a home run. So I don't know that I see Yelich hitting home runs the opposite way as a good sign, because I mean, his issue is the same one that Kid Brian Hayes and Alec Boehm have had. And if we think their solution is to pull it in the air more, then I'd be more encouraged if Yelich was doing that too.
I mean, we've seen him, when he's been a good power hitter in the past, it has typically been more all fields power. So I don't know. I'm not sure if there could be anything he could show us in spring training that would change how I feel about him, which is that he's a relatively safe player who I think has latent upside, and whether he hits that upside or not isn't really why I'm drafting him. If I'm drafting Christian Yelich, it's mostly for like a safe 15 or 20 type of production with a bunch of runs and, good OBP. Whereas, any upside I think is sort of, it's baked into the price, or it's not baked into the price to the point where I don't really care if there's upside there,
After Yelich went, Dansby Swanson, Chris took Chris Sale. Is that back-to-back Chris's for you, Bryant and Sale?
That is back-to-back, but one of them spells it wrong.
Yeah, that's correct. After Chris Sale, Bryce Harper, we do have 4 IL spots in this league. Could turn out to be a fantastic pick. Jordan Romano and Wilson Contreras to finish out round 7. Let's take our second break here. And when we get back, we'll get you into round 8 on Fantasy Baseball Today.
What do you think we're going to uncover out there?
With some luck, maybe a green jacket as sharp as the one you get when you win the Masters.
It's a tradition unlike any other. The Masters on CBS.
Make sure to download and follow our 5-minute podcast, Fantasy Baseball Today in 5, wherever you listen to podcasts. Round 8, Andrew Vaughn, Brandon Nimmo, Nick Lodolo, and Chris. I feel like this might be the first time you've got him in one of these drafts. Brandon Lau.
Yeah, and it's a guy I might have been able to wait on. I know not everybody's as excited about the Brandon Lowe experience as I am. Brandon Lau, right?
No.
Correct.
Yeah,
yes, Brandon Lau.
Brandon Lau.
As I am, but I think the bounce back potential is significant. Obviously, we saw him hit 39 homers in 2021 with a good, 340 OBP. He had a 362 in 2020. So I think he's someone that if he's healthy and if he's right, Brandon Lau can be a big time contributor in this format.
All right. Well, after Brandon Lau, Felix Bautista gets auto drafted for the team name Beetle Up. Yeah, make sure you turn off your auto pick because you don't want that to mess you up next time it comes around. Scott, you're on deck here. Let's check in on your team. We haven't done that the entire podcast so far, and
sure, why not? Would
be nice if I could find your team name. Right, it is Lego My Gallegos. Actually, Gallegos probably has some value here in saves plus holds. Remember that for later on. Freddie Freeman at first base, Jordan Walker at third, O'Neal Cruz at shortstop, Lars Nootbaar in the outfield, Corbin Carroll also in the outfield. You've got 2 starting pitchers, Corbin Burns and Robbie Ray, who frankly could combine for 450 strikeouts, maybe more than that.
Yeah,
wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, no, that's what I was trying to do is okay, so the guy who lost Felix Bautista says that was an error of technology, and he is asking for William Contreras instead. So that's who he's getting.
All right, fair enough.
Rather than Felix Bautista. Yeah, like I said earlier, if I'm going to pay for a pitcher in this format, I want it to be in the categories that I can rely on more from week to week. And I think among all the pitcher categories, strikeouts is the one. So I wanted a couple high strikeout guys there. Let's see here.
And who do you want here? You're on the clock.
Yeah, it's a good question. I think I am. Let me look at the pitcher situation here. I mean, I'm doing pretty well with pitcher so far. I'm gonna draft George Kirby.
Oh.
I think he could be a ratio standout. And
The strikeouts have been there in the spring.
Yeah.
He's got the new forkball splitter thing that has looked pretty good for him so far. One thing that we've talked about with both him and Logan Gilbert is like they're very popular breakout picks, but it's not actually clear where the breakout comes from either of them because it's not clear where the out pitch is with either of them. But if either the splitter becomes an out pitch or more likely helps some of the other pitches play up, I definitely think there's some upside there for sure.
Now, they did limit how deep he went into his starts last year. Obviously, he was a rookie. He's really efficient because he throws so many strikes. And so I am taking the chance that he takes a step forward, as many other people are. I mean, the only reason he's ranked this high is because people are expecting that. So I'm invested in George Kirby now in both of our podcast leagues. Jose Altuve went right afterward. I thought about taking him here in round 8, but 2 months is a long wait in a league this deep. And so I opted against it. He goes 120th overall, Altuve.
Scott, I believe you had George Kirby in Busts 1.0. Is that true? Did I make that up?
I did. Yeah. I mean, it's like a lot of breakout picks, right? You could make a bust argument just as easily. And the bust argument for George Kirby is, well, he has a good fastball? Does he have a good enough secondary pitch to go with it, to miss the kind of bats he would need to miss to take that step forward? If you look at his hit rate last year, his batting average against very high, higher than you'd expect for somebody with George Kirby's pedigree and just the kind of buzz he's getting in fantasy. It's the reason why, despite issuing just 1.5 walks per 9 as a rookie last year, an incredible rate, he still had a 1-2-1 whip. He was giving up so many hits. And so that's the downside argument for Kirby is the arsenal well-rounded enough to take advantage of his natural abilities? Chris talked about how he's mixed in a splitter this spring, and part of the upside case is just he's George Kirby. Look at that pedigree. Look at the fact he issued only 1.5 walks per 9 last year. It's one of those things that could go either way. It's just a question of whether the value is right for me.
It's a little Shane Bieber-esque, except Bieber's had the slider and curveball as go-to out pitches that Kirby still has to develop, and Bieber had them as go-to pitches at the point before he broke out. So that's one distinction where Kirby wasn't really getting the whiffs when he was, when we're hoping for the breakout.
Yeah, and I actually love the comp on Shane Bieber, Chris. It's one that I've always thought about too. If you look at Kirby's numbers last year, he gave up a ton of hits, and his whip was really high, despite having one of the best, I think historically, one of the best walk rates by a rookie starting pitcher in MLB history. And the reason why is because he lives in the zone too much. That was something that hurt Shane Bieber earlier in his career as well. So when you have pinpoint accuracy and command the way that Kirby does, I think you can expand the zone a little bit and, try and get opposing batters to chase pitches.
It's the classic command versus control thing. Control is avoiding walks. Command is throwing in and out of the strike zone where you need to at the right time. And, I would think Kirby has both, but command is also not just throwing the pitches where you need. Command is also related to stuff,
right.
You throw a slider in the strike zone. If you don't have a good slider, it doesn't really matter that you threw it for a strike. It's going to get crushed. It's that kind of thing.
Last point on George Kirby here. If MLB.com is correct, he's thrown 97 pitches this spring, 80 of them for strikes, which is just...
I don't think their pitch level data on the box, on the game, or on their stat pages is accurate.
Okay.
I'm not sure, but 92 pitches in 12 innings? That seems pretty low.
Yes, it does. So I don't know. I don't know if it's accurate, but it just wouldn't surprise me if he threw this many strikes throughout spring. His last outing was against the Dodgers on March 22nd. no-hit innings for George Kirby with 9 strikeouts in that game. Let's catch people up on some picks here. We left off a while ago. After Jose Altuve at pick 120, Lance Lynn, Matt Chapman, I selected MJ Melendez, who had a 12.4% walk rate as a rookie last year. So even if he hits for a lower batting average, I think that he is going to be a little bit more valuable in an OBP format. Rowdy Tellez, love it. Chris Bassett, Sean Murphy, Gleyber Torres, and Andres Munoz. And this is something I do like about saves plus holds leagues, is that you could just draft the most talented relievers. That's one aspect of it that I like. You could just focus on skills and ERA and strikeouts and all that fun stuff. Munoz, if he clicks, should be one of the most dominant relievers in baseball. We just don't know how many saves he's going to get. But in a league like this, that doesn't matter because he'll just get holds instead.
Yeah, I mean, he and Edwin Diaz, who of course is out for the year, they were in a class of their own in terms of swinging strike rate last year among relievers, among pitchers with 50 innings. So I think we can safely say Andres Munoz, if he stays healthy, is for sure a dominant reliever. But the downside to that argument is, we can just focus on skills for a reliever, is the samples are so small for every reliever in a given season that you can't confidently predict who the most talented reliever is going to be coming in. And you can use that to your advantage. That's what I try to do, is just as they emerge over the course of the year, kind of piece together that holds stable off the waiver wire. But yeah, in theory, what you're saying is right, where because you don't have to worry about what role they're filling so much, you can focus on skills over roles.
All right. But I would say that the reaction to that should be to value them less and to be the bar gets flatter for them. There's a lot of really good relievers out there. Every team has 3 guys who throw 98 miles an hour now. So it's, there's still I think you still need to lean away from or lean into the depth at relief pitcher that saves and holds creates.
I agree for the most part, but if Munoz has the season that we think that he's capable of, he probably shouldn't go almost 100 picks after Emmanuel Clase.
Yeah, that's fair.
I think it's more that Clase went too early.
Yeah, that makes sense. Let's get into round 9 here. Jose Miranda, Blake Snell, Logan Gilbert, Charlie Morton, Nick Castellanos, and I took my guy, had to do it. Jeffrey Springs, he's my SP3. Scott, I hope your report about him wanting to go deeper into starts is actually true, and I could get some quality starts this year out of Jeffrey Springs. Either way, I think we'll get a lot of strikeouts. His ADP over the past week over at the NFBC is 132.3. I just took him at pick 134. So Springs is someone who has been on the rise, followed by Hunter Green, Nathan Eovaldi, and Dustin May. So a bit of a pitcher run here, Scott, and you're up in round 9.
I'm going to take Miguel Vargas.
Nice.
I don't mean to keep taking all the hype guys. Gosh, my team is loaded with rookies.
It's a great dynasty team, Scott.
It really is.
Scott White, noted hype beast, lining up outside for Supreme gear.
It was actually more about
wearing the big red boots,
not liking the second base situation after Jose Altuve went and Ketel Marte just went before him. Gleyber Torres is gone since my last pick. And I know second base, I've talked about it being bottom heavy, so you'd think it'd be a better place to wait in a deep league like this. But again, only 9 lineup spots per team. So I don't know that I want to settle for a Jeff McNeil or a Thairo Estrada in a league as one of my 9 starting hitters. So obviously Miguel Vargas is only starting with first base eligibility, but he'll pick up second base by the end of the first week. And I'll be able to slot him at that position for the rest of the season. Hopefully he's actually good. I think he will be, but I have a lot of picks like that at this point.
After Scott took Miguel Vargas, Felix Bautista, Jake McCarthy, Ryan Helsley went to Chris, and then Vaughn Grissom at 142. Yes, that is correct. I just saw you right in the chat, Chris, that Vaughn Grissom got sent down, by the way. That is
I
true.
mean, we'll see.
Should not go for 142nd overall as a result.
Okay, yeah, that's what I figured, that the person didn't see it. I don't know if you guys are okay with going back on it.
I'm sure Scott is, because he's the nicest drafter I've ever drafted.
Yeah, whatever.
Whatever.
So, all right, so we backed out the pick, and we'll help out our friend Brendan here. Brendan Zachary, who,
I mean, look, everybody's busy. I understand.
Yeah.
I was disappointed that Jake McCarthy was gone when I went to pick. He got taken one pick before me, and I was hoping to go McCarthy and then Helsley with my next pick. Helsley ends up being the pick. Just another guy that I haven't drafted this year that obviously could be the best reliever in baseball. He kind of was last year. So, the saves plus holds of it all makes it a little easier to stomach the uncertainty about, who will actually get the saves there.
absolutely. After Ryan Helsley, the pick is Whit Merrifield instead of Vaughn Grissom. So you get a little speed there. Now I'm thinking about my roster construction here and how I took Volpe to help out with steals because I didn't really have any. This probably would have been a really good punt speed team now that I'm looking at it. I've got MJ Melendez, Matt Olson, Jonathan India, Alex Bregman, Volpe, Juan Soto. Outside of Volpe, there's not much. So
Yeah.
I don't know that I'm going to compete on a weekly basis in speed. And I've got 2 outfield spots left. I got a utility spot at those specific positions.
There are a lot
Yeah.
of good base stealers left. I feel like at this range of the player pool, I like the speed sources better than I like the power sources.
All right. Well, do you want to give me some names, Scott, so so I can draft them, or what do you?
I'd rather
what do you think?
not, but I mean, you've seen me draft before, Frank. You know who I target for the late.
I know. A few names just came to mind while you were talking about it. So I think
Jorge Mateo.
I've got
No, that is not one. Although he will provide speed.
Hey, when we were talking to Cal Ripken Jr., we asked him about Gunnar Henderson, and immediately he asked about Jorge Mateo. He's like, "Well, where's Mateo going to play?" So I thought that was interesting.
Hey, Brian Hayes said he wants to steal 30 bases.
I think he's probably fast enough.
Oh, he's definitely fast enough. Yeah.
Yeah. He had 20 steals last year, and now we're expecting speed to go up across baseball. So yeah, that would not surprise me one bit for Keep Brian Hayes. After Whit Merrifield, who was that?
And I'm not sure I'm not sure we ever addressed Brian Hayes' power output this spring specifically on the podcast this year. I did allude to it earlier in the same vein as Alec Boehm. Just he's hit 4 home runs this spring, which is more than half the total he had all of last season. And of course, Brian Hayes has high quality of contact. And what I said earlier, just basically they feel like he's timing up the ball better in a way that's allowing him to get out in front of it and pull it in the air more. And that's allowing those exit velocities to translate as power more than it has in the past. Whether he can sustain that into the regular season over the course of the season, I don't know, but I have renewed enthusiasm, renewed optimism for Brian Hayes and moved him up a tier in my rankings earlier today.
I know that we have made this comp already. I think it was you, Chris, but if we're excited about Alec Boehm, we should probably be excited about Brian Hayes for the same reasons, and potentially has even more upside with that speed element as well. After Whit Merrifield, Tyler Glasnow and Anthony Santander to finish out round 9. Great pick, by the way. That is way too.
Yeah, it's great value
for Santander. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to sign off part 1 here on the podcast side of things, but make sure to join us for part 2 as well. We will see you there. Welcome into part 2 of our live For the People Listener League draft. This is a 16-team head-to-head categories league with OBP, net stolen bases instead of just stolen bases, quality starts instead of wins, and saves plus holds instead of saves. Fun fact, this is Scott White's favorite format to play in.
No, incorrect. Wrong.
But let's talk about the picks that are going on. We left off at the end of round 9, so we'll start up with round 10 here. Lucas Giolito, who's actually had a very good spring. He was one of the hardest players for me to rank this year. I don't have a single share of him. It wouldn't surprise me if he makes me look absolutely foolish and pays off top 20 starting pitcher value once again. Wouldn't surprise me if he's somebody we want to drop halfway through the season. So a complete wild card is Lucas Giolito, but I think
while the other comeback candidates, Jake Flaherty and Jose Barrios, look terrible this spring, Giolito
that's true.
did look much better. He was actually getting strikeouts at a good rate and
velocity was down.
Delivering good outings. Yeah, velocity was down. It was down last year too. I don't think it was down even further, was it?
I know he was in like the 91, 92 range more often than not.
Okay.
And I saw quotes where he said he's not worried about it. He's more so.
Nobody's ever worried about it.
Yeah. Focusing, especially Zach Greinke, right?
Zach Greinke's the only. I think there was one time he said he was worried about it, and other than that, other than that, that's the only person who's ever admitted they were worried about their velocity being low.
But Giolito said he's really focusing on executing his pitches, a 4-pitch mix. So he's typically been 4-seam, changeup, and slider. So, working in a 4th pitch now, if he can execute all of them, maybe he doesn't need that 93, 94, 95 mile per hour fastball velocity. After Giolito, Yandy Diaz, who does get quite a boost in the OBP format, Brian Hayes, Riley Green, Josh Bell, Alec Boehm. Scott, you're up. Which prospect are you taking next?
I actually think I'm going to take Eugenio Suarez.
Interesting.
Yeah, a little behind in the power categories. And he gives me some flexibility since Jordan Walker will be able to shift to the outfield soon. And he actually draws a fair number of walks. So even though he hit 230 something last year, he reached base at a 330 something clip. If he can repeat it, which is a big if.
Mm-hmm. Scott, how do you feel about drafting a player in Suarez where you're just drafting him to fit a need, but he's not technically a target of yours or someone that you find yourself drafting often? Because I did this in my main event draft over at the NFBC, and it's probably not the draft that you want to do that in because it's obviously a lot of money. But I found myself a little bit behind in speed, and I needed a third baseman. I said, all right, I'm going to take Suarez, even though I don't really target him often. But yeah, when you need power, you just kind of, you got to go for it.
Well, yeah. I mean, that was basically the rationale there. I'm not a big Suarez guy or anything. I just was looking at the players who are capable of providing big power numbers, and I thought he presented the best fit. Like I said, the power sources at this stage of the draft are less attractive overall than I think the speed sources. So you just took Hunter Renfroe. I considered him as well. Suarez actually got on base about 20 points higher than Renfroe did last year. And because Walker, who I already have slotted at third base, I could shift to outfield. I thought it made more sense for me to go ahead and get a little insurance at third base rather than take another outfielder, especially since there are a lot of outfielders I like still. So yeah, Hunter Renfroe, if he had made it back to me, I would have taken him too, but I went for Suarez in this particular draft.
And that was a great pick that just happened. Let's talk about it. After I took Renfroe, Jake Cronenworth, also solid for OBP. Tristan Casas. I mean, if everything works out for him, one of the main skills for him is the eye at the plate, being able to draw walks, get on base. There's been talks that he could lead off against right-handed pitching this season. I feel like the Red Sox have mentioned every player on their roster as a leadoff candidate against right-handed pitching. So we'll see who actually wins that. But I think Tristan Casas excels in a format like this.
Kind of interesting thing about Tristan Casas. I wrote about him today. I wrote about the prospects who made the opening day roster and the ones who didn't. He has never had a slugging percentage over 500 in a minor league season, which is kind of interesting. That the comp that it made me think of is like maybe more like an early career Freddie Freeman, like a pre-breakout. Obviously, that would be closer to a best case scenario, but it might be a situation where like Tristan Casas, as a left-handed hitter at course or at Fenway, which is a tough park for home runs for lefties, maybe he's more of a batting average and an OBP guy than a home runs guy.
It's
obviously the raw power is there,
Yeah,
so it might just be not optimized.
It's definitely possible for Tristan Casas. He's got 3 home runs this spring to go along with 5 doubles and a 582 slug. So take that, Chris. He's doing it.
I did say at a minor league season.
Doing
I
it.
did say at a minor league season.
that is fair. After Casas, Yohan Duran, I think also a great pick for the reasons we talked about Andres Munoz earlier. Kenley Jansen, Jorge Polanco at the end of round 10, followed by Jesus Luzardo and Pablo Lopez. So either Marlin or former Marlin starting pitcher run. And
yeah, pitchers thinning out pretty quickly here. I was disappointed to see Joe Ryan go because I think he'll be a quality start machine. And so he went 3 picks after my Suarez pick, just before your Hunter Renfroe pick, Frank, in round 10. And then, part of my thinking was, well, Jesus Luzardo is still out there. Surely Jesus Luzardo is going to go before Joe Ryan. It didn't happen. And it's another situation where Luzardo, is he going to be going 6 innings consistently enough to deliver the quality starts you want? Probably, but there are durability questions there in a way there aren't for Joe Ryan. So I kind of get it. Again, it's a weird format, and I feel like because it's so atypical, we're all kind of flying blind with it. Like our expectations for when players should go are basically out the window, and we're kind of all being driven by our guts right now, which is why, I don't know that this is going to be the most helpful of the live mock draft podcast we've done, but blame Heath Cummings.
Just to be clear, I do have a spreadsheet.
Right. Sneaky Chris.
You're just relying on something someone else put together, right?
The spreadsheet is my gut, Scott.
Okay.
I'm just imagining a picture of your gut on a spreadsheet now. That's what you're working off of right now. After Pablo Lopez, Ty France, Pete Fairbanks, love it, and Anthony Rendon. I am up. I've got like 12 seconds. So I don't know. Maybe it's a little bit early for this guy, but I don't want to give Scott 2 opportunities to draft him, and I need speed. So I'm going to go ahead and select Garrett Mitchell. It's a little bit early at 166.
Yep. That's
Starting
one of my guys.
Starting pitcher is dwindling. Starting pitcher is dwindling, but I don't know that there's a huge difference between a lot of the names that are left. So I think I'll be all right just waiting and seeing who makes it back to me. I have 3 starters so far in Fried, Darvish, and Jeffrey Springs. Yeah, pretty high floor. So upside with Springs. So I'm all right.
I'm assuming everyone who's drafting with us is watching. Someone take Jeremy Pena, because I want to take a shortstop, but I don't want to take Jeremy Pena. But I don't want to move this shortstop ahead of Jeremy Pena in my rankings. I can't justify that. So someone please take Jeremy Pena for me. Thank you.
Now I'm trying to figure it out. But all right.
I have a guess.
Yes, I think I do as well. Anywho, after I took Garrett Mitchell, Tyler Stevenson. That's pretty good value for Stevenson at this point. 167th overall.
Yeah, we haven't really talked about him, but there's been some interesting playing time notes where he's not really going to play catcher all that often. I think the goal is 65 games at catcher, and the rest is going to be at DH and first base. And Tyler Stevenson could be one of those guys who is surprisingly viable. In part, obviously, if he hits as well as he has the last few seasons, he's going to be viable either way. But if he gets to 550, 600 plate appearances, all of a sudden that profile looks even better.
Yeah. Yep. So it could be a volume play this season for Tyler Stevenson, Freddie Peralta, and then Kyle Wright.
Really good value on Kyle Wright. I think that's going to work out well.
I was thinking about Kyle Wright too. He apparently is going to start on the IL as he continues to get built up, building up that shoulder, which he had a little bit of a late start to spring, but it sounds like he'll only miss 2 starts, and the rotation could be back by mid-ish, late April, 3rd week, something like that, 2nd, 3rd week. So good value for Kyle Wright at 169th. Scott, you are on the clock in round 11.
I'm going to take Ezekiel Tovar.
I knew that's who Chris wanted.
I knew it is too.
Come on.
That continues the trend of the greatest dynasty team ever drafted here in a live.
I hesitated, and I probably wouldn't have thought of it if Chris hadn't brought that up.
I'm so upset.
Well, Chris, now you got to take Jeremy Pena, so.
I probably
And then I was
do.
about to take Kyle Wright, and of course he went right before my pick. So I had some other players I was considering there, but if Tovar is a power speed threat as shortstop, as I think he could be, and I don't think he'll walk a lot, but Coors Field, I mean, the batting average could be solid. He had well over 300 in the minors last year. I've talked about him being probably the most underdrafted player. I do already have a shortstop in O'Neal Cruz, but I could slot. Like, it's not a bad idea to have Cruz insurance, and I could slot Tovar in at utility in the meantime.
Cruise insurance like a life preserver?
Something like that.
Yeah, no, I was thinking today about Ezekiel Tovar and like how much excitement there is for Jordan Walker and Anthony Volpe, and for good reason. They're very good players. They are better real life prospects than Ezekiel Tovar, and the Rockies have very much earned the benefit, whatever the opposite of the benefit of the doubt is, with the way they've developed and the way they've handled their young players over the past, frankly, decade. I mean, really, since like Trevor Story is the last even halfway decent. I guess Ryan McMahon's halfway decent. Trevor Story is the last good player that they've developed. So like they are a team that is very reasonable to be like, I just don't trust them. But Ezekiel Tovar, I mean, his minor league numbers are a lot better than Anthony Volpe's, especially last season. Obviously, the stolen base totals are very different, but he's also got Coors Field, and like, I don't know, in a neutral context, I think 100 pick difference between where Volpe and Walker are going and where Tovar are going makes sense. But the fact that Tovar is going to play half his games at Coors Field, I think that gap needs to be a lot smaller.
Two things. You talked about how Walker and Volpe are much better prospects than Tovar. They are consensus top 5 prospects overall. Yes. Tovar's top 25 consensus prospects. So let's not sell his prospect standing short. And because we've mentioned Volpe's batting average a couple times already, I will note, again, it was very cold at where he was playing AA Somerset early last year. It held Oswald Peraza back too. Final 93 games last year, Volpe hit 274. Let's do more arbitrary endpoints here.
Was that final X games at AA? Because he was also not great at AAA.
No, I counted AAA. If you do final X games at AA, then
that's much better.
I'm sure it's much better. Yeah, final 72 games at AA, 286 is what Volpe hit.
And we should mention that 2 years ago, Volpe hit 294 in the minors. So yeah, it was obviously at lower levels. I believe it was high, just A ball and high A. But
I'm expecting something in the 250, maybe 260 range from Volpe this year. If it's 240, would it be the shock at the century? I doubt he hits 220.
Right. Let's catch people up on picks. I said there was a bunch of pitchers left. Well, they're not left anymore. Scott took Tovar. After that, Ian Happ, David Robertson. Chris took Reed Detmers. I might have outsmarted myself. Scott, would you have taken Garrett Mitchell with either of these picks?
I don't know. I wasn't thinking. I wasn't planning my next pick yet at the point you took him, but he wouldn't have been far away for me thinking about him.
Okay. Well, because
Chris hadn't mentioned he wanted a shortstop, maybe I would have.
Yeah, I was debating Garrett Mitchell and Reed Detmers.
I'm inconsolable.
Maybe I should have taken Detmers. Anywho, after Detmers goes Jesse Winker, Luis Severino, Miles Michaelis. One of the... What are we going with today?
Golden Girls.
Golden Girls. Okay. Scott would disagree. Let's get into round 12. Luis Arraez, Raisel Iglesias, who is going to start off with some low-grade shoulder inflammation. But they're expecting it to be a minimal stay on the IL, assuming no setbacks. We'll see what happens with Raisel Iglesias. Seiya Suzuki, who has been swinging a bat, likely to start on the IL with an oblique injury, but could be back sometime late April, maybe early May. Chris did get Jeremy Pena, lower OBP, but
yeah, I'm
gosh, I got thrown off because Esteury.
I don't love it.
I was going to double tap Ruiz and Garrett Mitchell just for a bunch of steals. It's probably not a good strategy, but I don't know. I thought it would have been fun. Anywho, I can't do that anymore. Pena, look, kind of free swinger. Again, lower OBP, probably gonna hit like 250, 260.
Yeah, this
power and speed, and as long as Altuve's out, I think he's gonna be near the top of the Astros lineup. So
yeah, this is actually the first time I've drafted him in a 2023 draft. So I'm not super excited about it, but it's 70 picks after his ADP. Even in an OBP league, I think the value's fine. I find it sort of underwhelming, but it's fine.
let's talk about another one of these.
Played myself.
After Pena went, Grayson Rodriguez, Esteury Ruiz, Scott goes ahead and takes Merrill Kelly. So, once you see one of them out Rushmore, they all start to go.
And because this is a quality start league, I think that, as you pointed out earlier, Frank, that's more reason to prioritize it. There are a couple pitchers that in a typical league I would take ahead of Merrill Kelly for the upside. They're still out there. But I think I had to prioritize that his ability to pile up quality starts because he pitches deep into games and limits runs well enough.
Scott, let's talk about Grayson Rodriguez because we got duped. Will not be in the opening day rotation for the Baltimore Orioles, and he was officially optioned to AAA after a rough spring here. We heard, I don't know, late February that he was going to be in the Orioles rotation. I guess a bad spring changed their decision. What are we doing with Grayson Rodriguez? Are we still drafting him and stashing him in the meantime?
I don't think it's a bad idea. It's probably not on that much higher of a level than we're doing with Brandon Pfaadt. I do think the Orioles wanted him in the rotation. They expected him to be in the rotation. That's why we were surprised. The surprise was that Grayson Rodriguez didn't step up and take the job. None of his starts were particularly good this spring, and you don't want to put a prospect who you value that much, who think is that big of a part of your future. You don't want to put him in a position where he's just going to lose a ton of confidence. So it was surprising in the sense that the Orioles hadn't hinted they were going to send him down, but it wasn't surprising in the sense that, well, he didn't really earn the job. So
yeah.
But I moved him down to the point where I wouldn't be drafting him here where he went. I moved him down. So I do have him a little ahead of Brandon Pfaadt, but Grayson Rodriguez is now behind Trevor Rogers for me in the same range as like Nathan Eovaldi and Jose Urquidy, that range of pitchers. Obviously, depending on your format, you might want to prioritize upside. You might want to prioritize security more. But that's where
I will say I could see it being a situation where like a different situation, obviously, but like remember Reed Detmers last year, we talk about when he went down and fixed himself. It was one start that Reed Detmer was down. It was like 18 days or something, but he missed a couple of turns in the rotation. The way Mike Elias was talking about, he's the Baltimore GM, was that would be their hope, and obviously, look, general managers lie to the media constantly. It's part of the job. And, it could be some kind of service time thing, although this is a team that is acutely aware that playing service time games can backfire. I don't think they did that with Adley Rutschman, but he didn't play a full season last year. He got a full season of service time anyway because he finished top 2 in Rookie of the Year voting. So they know, and every team knows, but they know that just keeping a guy down doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get that extra year of service time.
And he had an injury. Rutschman had an injury, so it was a different reason.
Yes, no, that's what I mean. They didn't. I mean, there was probably a little bit of it, but that either way, he didn't get the full year of service time. He didn't play the full year, but he still got the full year of service time. That's what can happen now with the new rules. So the incentives are steered away from keeping guys down in a way that the Orioles saw last year firsthand.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, I guess from the perspective of thinking about draft pick compensation, the Orioles are still going to have Gunnar Henderson up on opening day, and he's the favorite to win the AL Rookie of the Year, or at least finish top 3. So either way, they're probably in good position to wind up with draft pick compensation. But in the meantime, Grayson Rodriguez is sent down, and hopefully he gets back on track, and we'll see him soon in the majors.
I think it'll be soon. I didn't move him down too much.
After Scott took Merrill Kelly, we saw Justin Turner does play up a little bit in OBP. Camilo Duval, Joey Meneses, who had a great WBC, hit some home runs against Team USA. I took Drew Rasmussen. I don't know how many quality starts he's going to give me, but I think I'll get.
Yeah, he had 9 last year. That was specifically the player I was referring to, who I'd normally take over Merrill Kelly.
Mhm.
But because it's a quality start league, and maybe he gets better, but he pitches for the Rays, who are notorious for not letting pitchers face a lineup a third time through.
That is fair. I believe it was his final 6 starts, 6 or 7. He went 6+ in every one of them but one. And I think one of them he had like a near no-hitter, so he went into the 9th inning. So we'll see if that carries over for Rasmussen, but I do think he's a talented pitcher. Just let him go deeper into his starts. Paul Sewald, Alex Verdugo, Martin Perez, Rushmore, Josh Young, and Ryan McMahon. We are into round 13. Jordan Montgomery, who kind of has like a Rasmussen thing on. Like, I think he's a pretty good pitcher, but I don't know how often he's going to go 6. I feel like he's...
It kept him from getting wins last year. He had 9 wins and 32 starts.
Right. I feel like he's a classic Jordan Montgomery, like 5 innings, 2 runs. It's like a solid start, doesn't kill you, doesn't help you. He's fine. After Jordan Montgomery, Brady Singer, Jeff McNeil, and Patrick Sandoval. Sandoval is someone that we've talked up throughout spring training. He looked good in WBC.
Looked awesome.
Yeah. Talking about hopefully using his changeup more this year and develop that slider last season as well. And then David Bednar goes off the board. I wonder when I should start to consider relievers. I haven't really thought about it at all. But I am on the clock, so I should probably figure out what I want to do. What does this team need? I've got 4 pitchers. I don't think there's anyone I want to take here. I need a utility bat. And
Brandon Drury is a calling, Frank.
No, he's not. Maybe he's calling you. Not calling me. I'm going to go ahead and take JD Martinez on the bounce back for my utility spot. I don't know why. It's definitely a psychological thing. Whenever I have a util spot open, I kind of want to fill it with a util only player. You don't need to do that at all. But sometimes I just want to. I don't know why, but it's like a mental thing that happens in my head. But JD Martinez, I think this is the second time I've drafted him. I got him in our Memorial Magazine salary cap league that we did probably 3-4 weeks at this point now. Just buying the bounce back a little bit. And look, we're around pick 200, so it's not a great investment, crazy investment into him. But hitting in the middle of the Dodgers lineup, hopefully, could give me some counting stats and a solid OBP to boot. Well, I was debating JD Martinez and Jared Kelenic, and he just went. So there goes that.
Love the value on Kodai Senga at 199. I continue to love the value for him across the board. I wonder if there would be more hype around him if he had thrown the forkball more during the spring, because he didn't really use it all that much, and it, by all accounts, is his best pitch. And I don't know. I get that he's older and there are a little bit of injury concerns and some control questions about him, but I don't know, man. Can you imagine the reaction if we had a 23-year-old starter come out throwing 95 to 99 miles an hour with a huge breaking ball and a really good splitter?
Well,
we'd be blowing our tops. We'd be pushing that guy into the top 150, and Senga just
his
never
downsides
goes there.
wouldn't be as ingrained yet. And I just think Kodai Senga is going to be a bad source of whip. That's mainly what it comes down to for me.
Sure.
Yeah, I don't think he's a bad pick here, but this is about the point where I'd consider him in this league.
No, I think I get why the cost is so minimal for him. I do wonder if we're outsmarting ourselves a little bit, or that we're not accounting for enough upside for a guy making, because his strikeout numbers are good for Japan, but people don't strike out as often in Japan as well. So he's a 10.5 K per 9 guy in Japan. Well, he could be an 11 K per 9 guy in the majors with how much more guys strike out. Obviously, it requires the stuff to translate, but I think there's plenty of upside there, I guess is the way I would put it.
I think it's partly a reflection of just how much deeper starting pitcher is, that we don't have to invest so much in a taking a stab in the dark like that, particularly for a pitcher who does have pretty obvious downsides.
Mhm.
I mean, it's true. He could be like, he could stay healthier than we expect. He could approach 200 strikeouts and be, a top 25 type starting pitcher in fantasy. That is a possibility.
I just think it's
there are some
weird
pitchers left who were top
Yeah.
25 pitchers in fantasy last year.
Yeah, it's weird that there's just like seemingly no hype about a guy who got a $75 million contract this offseason, who also like throws 99, can hit 99.
A few tweets here from Anthony DeComo, who covers the Mets for MLB.com, regarding Kodai Senga, who made a start in an intra-squad game on Monday. He threw 5 scoreless innings against a team of prospects, so obviously not the greatest competition, but apparently he threw about a dozen ghost fork balls in that outing. So it's nice to see him start to use that pitch a little bit more. I know he was dealing with a bit of a finger injury. They say sometimes it can happen when a pitcher comes over from Japan. They just grip the ball a little bit
The
too
baseballs
hard.
are different. The baseballs are a little bigger here, and they're
Slicker.
they're pre-tacked
good
in
grip.
Japan is the way they refer to it. So they have better grip. Yeah.
But after Kodai Senga, let's catch people up. Jared Kelenic, Noah Syndergaard, Scott took Oscar Colas.
Finally, I liked him more. I liked him before anyone else did, and this is the first time I got Oscar Colas in a league we're playing out. Granted, he's my 5th rookie at this point.
I was going to say, he's got, how many prospects is too many prospects?
It might be this many.
Yeah, it might be. But
I
alas,
have 5. 5 prospects.
he's made the White Sox and should be a contributor. I don't know how much he's going to walk. He's more of a free swinger type, but I think the batting average.
White Sox have a type.
Yeah, could hit for average, should hit for power, which I'm more concerned about anyway. I got a really sturdy OBP base, I feel like, between Freeman and Carroll. So I'm not too stressed about OBP at this point. If you are stressed about OBP in the pick 200 range, you might as well just give up because there's no salvaging it at this point. Yeah.
Again, a sharp room where the players who do get boosted up in OBP were drafted earlier. Guys like Yandy Diaz. I remember, went about pick 150 because does walk a lot and obviously is better in a format like this. After Oscar Colas, Alexis Diaz, Nico Horner, Chris took Trevor Rogers for the hashtag brand, TJ Friedel, Tyro Estrada, and Luis Garcia. We are into round 14. Ahmed Rosario, Tristan McKenzie, pick 210. If you missed the news earlier, he's dealing with it was a shoulder injury, right, Chris? You are muted, sir.
Yeah, it's a muscle on the back of the shoulder. So not a ligament issue. Doesn't sound like it's as worrying as it could be, but he's not going to throw for 2+ weeks, and timeline is likely eight weeks until he's back.
Okay. Well, after Tristan McKenzie, Brendan Pfaadt at pick 211, starting pitcher prospect for the Diamondbacks. And he's interesting too, because this is a quality start format, and he led the minors in innings pitched last year, and he goes deep for a prospect. So I think that will be something that is part of his skill set this season. Alec Thomas went to Chris, Brandon Drury, Gabriel Moreno. Love it. Great pick at this point, 214. Jake Fraley to Scott and Jack Flaherty. Chris, talk to me about Alec Thomas. How much are you expecting him to play for the Diamondbacks from the jump here?
Yeah, I do think there are some concerns about it. It's a bet on talent, though. If Alec Thomas is good, I think he's going to play quite a bit. He's a very, very talented player who obviously did not play particularly well in his first taste of the majors last season, 619 OPS. However, he is still only 22. He turns 23 on August 28th. Almost happy birthday to Alec Thomas, born in 2000. That makes me feel old. But he's put up really good numbers in the minors as a young player. I mean, we're not talking about like a 24, 25-year-old. He was 21 in 2021. And he had a 953 OPS between AA and AAA. Overall, he's played 61 games at AAA. He has a 1024 OPS. That's in Reno. That's in the PCL. All the caveats apply. It's inflated offense, but he's got the potential to be, a guy who steals some bases, a guy who hits for a little bit of power and gets on base. So I do think Alec Thomas is someone, in the later rounds should be on your radar.
All right, for those watching us live on YouTube, you probably just saw me load up a bunch of relievers in my queue, and now that everyone could see, they're probably going to take all of them. But I just needed to remind myself of who's available, and I'm going to go ahead and take one of those names in Jason Adam, who was one of the best relievers in baseball last year. Amazing ratios, good amount of strikeouts, pitches for Tampa Bay. We have no idea if he will get saves for the team, but there's a good chance he gets holds. So I like drafting talented relievers on good teams in a format like this, and Jason Adam fits that description. Let's take another break here. We are into part 2, but when we get back, we'll catch you up on Fantasy Baseball Today.
Get breaking news,
Big news coming out of the NFL today.
highlights, and instant reactions.
The largest final round comeback in tour championship history. We're down to the final 4.
I just want to take time to analyze greatness.
Talk winners and losers with a guy who's already a big winner.
CBS Sports HQ. It's all sports all day long.
All right, let's see. After Scott took Jake Fraley, we saw Jack Flaherty, Michael Conforto, Javier Baez. I took Jason Adam, then Daniel Bard, Giovanni Gallegos. That's a good pick. I like that. And Edward Cabrera. I thought about Cabrera. I like him. I know you like him, Chris. I think he's going to give us a good amount of strikeouts. But given how much he walks batters, I think that's going to limit his ability to go deep into starts.
Yeah, that's a concern for sure. And in the spring, I think his walks per 9 was 3.6. Now he didn't even make enough innings to get to 2 per 9. 18, if that makes sense. So it's a very, very small sample size, but he did what we needed him to in spring training. You talk about like Josh Young and some of those other guys that we talked about last week or earlier this week. I can't remember. He did what you wanted to see. He got a ton of ground balls. He got a ton of weak contact, and he didn't give up that many walks. So I think Edward Cabrera is someone that, this format probably doesn't help, but if he's good, he'll get through batters pretty easily because he's going to generate weak contact. He could be like Sandy Alcantara in that way. And it's just a question of whether he can avoid walks well enough to take advantage.
All right. After I took Jason Adam, again, Bard and Gallegos, Edward Cabrera, Tony Gonsolin at pick 223. That's pretty late for someone who maybe misses a couple of weeks. Maybe it's the first month. I was off Tony Gonsolin coming into the offseason because he was going at pick 130, 140 around, other breakout hopefuls like Dustin May and Jeffrey Springs and guys like that. But man, falling 100 spots with the worry about this ankle injury.
Yeah,
that's probably
I've been drafting him a lot. I've been drafting him a lot more since he got injured than before it. Yeah,
probably a bit of an overreaction there for Gonsolin.
Well, I mean, the fact we saw Tristan McKenzie go a couple rounds earlier. I mean, Gonsolin should be back a month before, right?
Yeah, and it's a less worrisome injury. I mean, Gonsolin did have a forearm injury last season, so that there are arm-related concerns as well. But the present injury for Tony Gonsolin is much less concerning than Tristan McKenzie's.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. After Gonsolin, Josh Naylor to finish out round 14, and the first pick of round 15 is Evan Phillips.
I was waiting for him to go.
Yeah,
what's the name of this gentleman here? KC Burnt Ends. Corey Kassaw. You're probably watching, and you saw me put Evan Phillips in my queue. You're a cheater, and you took it from me.
I mean, his A+ holds league. He's good pick. His numbers last year were phenomenal. 1.14 ERA, 0.76 WHIP. He was Ryan Helsley, he doesn't appear to be in line for saves with the Dodgers. We don't really know what the Dodgers are going to do for saves, having said that. And we don't really care in a format that saves plus holds because we know Phillips is going to be part of the back end bullpen mix.
Yes, I think it's a great pick. Would you guys rather have Phillips or Jason Adam in saves plus holds?
Phillips.
I think they're right there. I think AJ Minter is right there to name another guy who is not in Frank's queue. So if anybody wants to take that guy as well.
Hey, hold on. I'm putting him in my queue. That means you can't take him.
I think those guys are all ideal for this format.
That's a lot of power, Frank. That's a lot of power you have.
I got really nervous because I thought I was on the clock, and then I saw the red 5 seconds left, and I'm like, oh crap! But it wasn't me. It was.
And I'll also throw out a guy who's had a very up and down career, but last season I took James Karinchak late in Tout Wars because that's a saves plus holds. Obviously, I think there are some concerns about the sticky stuff ban that was put into effect in 2021, and they are apparently going to crack down once again on that after standards lapsed, I think, and we've seen spin rates go back up. James Karinchak is, according to the people who track this kind of stuff, using sticky stuff, I think is the technical term. So we'll see how that works, but he was awesome last year when he came back. Another guy who could be a very good saves plus holds guy.
All right. A couple other picks that happened here. What do we got? Ryan Mountcastle. Doesn't walk very much, but poor guy, man. I mean, playing in Camden with that, just taking a chunk out of the ballpark, it just kind of crushes the upside potential for Ryan Mountcastle. After him, Gene Segura, Scott Barlow. I took AJ Minter. Thank you, Chris. Needed that. Sir Anthony Dominguez. And we're 2 picks away from Scott. Do you have a reliever yet?
No, I don't know that I'll draft one until the last 3 rounds.
Oh, okay.
I think that's what I did last year, and it turned out okay.
There's some really good ones out there.
Yeah, for sure. I'm just kind of underwhelmed by the other names that are out there right now. So figured I'd grab some elite relievers, but you might be right.
I used to be that lax about saves in pure saves leagues. I've learned that doesn't fly anymore. But for saves plus holds, yeah, I mean, a lot of the best hold sources, we don't even know who they are yet.
Mm-hmm. Again, it's target skills and strikeouts on good teams, and hopefully that translates. After I took Minter, Dominguez, Jorge Lopez. So we do see a lot of relievers going at this point. Travis d'Arnaud, likely to be the backup catcher, maybe play a little DH against left-handed pitching for the Atlanta Braves. And Scott, you're back up. Don't tell me it's another prospect. What do we got?
No, it's not. It's far from a prospect. I'm not sure he ever was a prospect.
Ellie De La Cruz.
Actually, I think he was a prospect for the Rockies back in the day. It's Tyler Anderson, the last of the Mount Rushmore. Going well after the second last of the Mount Rushmore, Martin Perez.
Can we get a Mr. Anderson drop for Tyler Anderson?
Probably.
Mr. Anderson.
Mr. Anderson.
I got to make that happen. Let's do it. Yeah, I probably should have taken him. I think once Chris said AJ Minter, my mind just got attached, and I was like, yep, I'm taking him. But good pick with Tyler Anderson. Should go deep pretty regularly for the Angels. After that, Andrew Benintendi, Oscar Gonzalez. Sneaky pick, Chris. I like it. Hayden Wesneski, who had a great spring and was named to the Cubs rotation.
And is throwing harder than he has. His sweeper was a really, really good pitch for him last year. But he talked in his most recent start about touching 97 miles per hour and referenced the fact that at various times in the spring, he's been over 99 miles an hour, which is a pretty massive jump for a guy who maxed out at 95.9 miles an hour last season. So that is definitely putting Hayden Wesneski on my late round radar. He's one of the bigger spring risers for me and someone that I'm going to draft here. Already did, actually.
I love it. I picked him up in the head-to-head points listener league. I think I had a $6 or $7 bid out of $100 on him.
Yeah.
So
I need to move him up more. I've been moving him up, but not enough. I mean, I still have him behind John Gray, Jose Urquidy, guys who haven't gone yet, and Tyler Mahle, who had a terrible spring. And I just think I like it's sometimes hard with you get to a certain range in the pitcher rankings when you're moving newcomers around, and it feels kind of like the way college football rankings work, where they haven't done anything to lose this spot.
Yeah,
upstart, this Johnny come lately up ahead of them. In Hayden Wesneski's case, probably. And it's more of like, we only get one set of rankings. We can't distinguish, I'd rather have this guy in a shallow league where I can sell out for upside harder. I'd rather have this guy in a deep league.
And when you're
I play it
drafting,
safer.
drafting is different than ranking. And so, you can look at it and say, I might rather have Tyler Malley. But it also might be a situation where on March 27th, it might be easier to get Tyler Malley in the 18th round than Hayden Wesneski.
Mm-hmm. And I think another point to that, Chris, is if you play in a roto or head-to-head categories league, you just can't draft off of straight rankings. I mean, it comes down to, what category do I need at this point in the draft?
Absolutely.
I think most people realize that if they play in that format, but I think we might, for some new players who might not realize, just because you have, you can't just draft your highest ranked player in a format like this. You got to fit your needs. So I think that's a little reminder there. After you took Hayden Wesneski, Adam Ottavino, Alex Cobb, people are decimating my queue, Brandon Donovan. And then we are into round 16, Rafael Montero. That's a sneaky pick. I like that. Was a talented reliever last year. Plays for the Astros. Trent Grisham, Trey Mancini, Mitch Haniger at pick 244. It's very late. Chris, you can stash him in the meantime. Josiah Gray, Jose Barrios went right before him. All right, so pitchers are flying here.
Yeah, I'm not going to mess around with this one. I'm going to go with the spring riser who I'm most excited about, because what he does with a radar gun he doesn't get enough credit for, and that's Graham Ashcraft, who his main pitch is a cutter that regularly hits triple digits. He came up from the minors last year, had a couple good starts, but didn't get strikeouts with a ton of regularity, having all that velocity. Changed his slider grip heading into this spring, and this spring has 25 strikeouts in 17 and a third innings. 25 strikeouts to 2 walks in 17 and a third innings. And I noticed the other day, Reds media was asking Joey Votto who he likes, who he thinks has the brightest future between Hunter Green, Nick Lodolo, and Graham Ashcraft. Just by virtue of Ashcraft getting lumped in with those other two, I think shows how the enthusiasm is building for him among those closest to the Reds, and I think he deserves more attention in fantasy.
I agree. I was smirking a little bit while you drafted him, because I love, at this point in the draft season, we kind of have things that kind of set us off, right? So once you see Josiah Gray go, I feel like, well, now those kind of exciting pitchers who have made changes this spring are going to start to go. So then it just kind of sets off an alarm in your head. All right, let me go take Graham Ashcraft. You might have been ready to take him anyway, Scott, but I feel like that happens.
No, you're right. It's like a little cue. It's like, okay, this is the right time to start making this move.
Right.
Yeah.
But after Graham Ashcraft, Jose Urquidy, Eduardo Rodriguez, and Will Myers. This is a player that I typically draft every year. It's kind of like my late round Eloy Jimenez at starting pitcher. One of these years he'll stay healthy, right? I think, hopefully. And that is John Gray. He was actually pretty good last year, his first season in Texas. His last couple of starts, he got blown up, so it made the numbers look worse than they were. But I think heading into those, I think it was final 2 or 3 starts, he had a 3.5 or 3.6 ERA. So he was useful last year at times. John Gray was, and I kind of like him now that he is outside of Colorado. So going back to the well, after I took him, Jose Leclerc, who looks like he'll be the closer to start for the Rangers, followed by Hunter Brown and Josh Rojas. I want to look up Hunter Brown and see what the latest is on him, because he was scratched from a start last week with back soreness. And it sounds like Lance McCullers could be back sooner than maybe we anticipated. The latest news on Hunter Brown is that he completed a 25-pitch bullpen session on Sunday, is expected to throw a simulated game this week. Assuming everything goes well during the simulated game, should be good to go for Houston's first turn through the starting rotation. Brown could line up to start the Astros home opener against the Tigers on April 3rd. All right. Nice matchup there. Chris, the issues that I have with Hunter Brown are similar to Edward Cabrera, where I think there's upside. I think there's strikeout potential, but he had bad control in the minors. So if that could limit his ability to go deeper into starts. So just kind of similar to Edward Cabrera, I guess, in that way.
Yeah, I think he's fine in this range. I think he's a perfectly reasonable dice roll. I think there are some who talk about him as more than a dice roll, and that's where I kind of recoil and get a little antsy. But I think he's a perfectly reasonable pick in this range.
All right, we are into round 17. The last couple of picks here. Brett Beatty, who will start in the minors for the Mets, but Eduardo Escobar is on a short leash. And look, I think if Daniel Vogelbach struggles, maybe they move Escobar over to DH, call up Brett Beatty. There's a couple of different routes for him to get back to the Mets. Alex Lang, who should be the closer to start the season for the Tigers, though didn't have the greatest spring training. Cody Bellinger at pick 257. That's pretty late. Saw him hit a pretty Bellinger-esque home run on Sunday. See if that can carry over. Yasmani Grandal. He's if you need a catcher at this point, it's not terrible in OBP. He's going to walk. I don't know if he's going to do anything else, but Yasmani Grandal is going to draw walks. That I can tell you for sure. Ramon Laureano, a little bit of power and speed. Sonny Gray, Colton Wong, and I should probably stop talking because I'm up. I got to figure out who I want to
on
take.
the clock.
I'm on the clock. And I think I need more starting pitching depth. And which I don't know. Which one of these not so exciting pitchers do I want to take? I'll go with this guy. I know Chris likes him.
Yeah. I was looking at Jameson Taillon next as well.
Yeah, this guy being Taillon, as Scott referenced. Pretty good spring, and everybody this spring is now throwing a sweeping slider, including Jameson Taillon. So,
and that's the biggest things he's missed, right? Is he's missed. He needs a swing and miss pitch, the put away pitch. The control was very good last year. He does a decent job with contact, gets a decent number of ground balls. It's just he doesn't have a pitch to put guys away with, and the sweeper hopefully can be that.
Yep, that is the hope for Jameson Taillon, and something we probably haven't talked about enough with Cubs starting pitchers. Their defense should be much improved this year. Mm-hmm. So with Dansby Swanson playing short, Cody Bellinger in center field, defense up the middle should be very good for the Cubbies. After I took Taillon, Ross Stripling, it's a nice little pick. I still do like him, though he doesn't have great upside. He's more of a high floor pick than I think anything else. Vaughn Grissom, again, starting in the minors, but probably a prospect you should be stashing. Brusdar Graterol could work his way into some save opportunities for the Dodgers. And Scott, let's check in on your team. I feel like
why not?
It's been a while since we've done that.
It's very young. You'll notice
that we know
will jump out at you. It's got a little veteran leadership there with Merrill Kelly and Freddie Freeman, yeah.
All right, so we're lacking a catcher. We're lacking a second baseman, though Miguel Vargas will earn that eligibility. You've got Freddie Freeman at first, Jordan Walker at third, O'Neal Cruz at short, Lars Nootbaar in the outfield, followed by Corbin Carroll, Oscar Colas. I know you got Eugenio Suarez there on the bench, Jake Fraley, Ezekiel Tovar, so some upside bats to go along with Tyler Anderson, Robbie Ray, Lance McCullers. Yeah, you just took McCullers. I know you like to do that later on in drafts. Merrill Kelly, Corbin Burns, Kirby, and Graham Ashcraft. I like the way you balance the pitching staff because you've got like two anchors, two aces in Burns and Robbie Ray. Then you got some upside with Kirby and Ashcraft. And then you got a few more safe picks and quality starts in Tyler Anderson and Merrill Kelly. So it's a nice little blend there.
Yeah, that was the idea. Like I said 2 hours ago or whatever, if I was going to invest at starting pitcher, I wanted it to be in strikeout standouts. And so getting Burns and Ray, I think that's the most predictable of the pitching categories from week to week. But all of my pitchers should be pretty safe bets for quality starts. George Kirby's the big exception there, but I think he has a lot of, because he's so efficient, that could change for him here in year 2, getting a lot of quality starts. There's no shortage of upside on this team. It's just that the other side of the upside is downside because there are so many rookies. I mean, how many hitters do I have on my entire roster that we're confident we know what they're going to do? It's basically just Freddie Freeman. Now, I have really strong feelings about how Corbin Carroll's going to perform. I think the floor is pretty high there. Eugenio Suarez, if he does what he did last year, he'll be a fine investment, but there's a lot of volatility in that profile. It's partly relying on the fact that this is a 9-man lineup, a 9-man hitter lineup. And so I want to make sure I get the impact in each of those spots. And if it doesn't work out, if I have to move on from Lars Nootbaar or whatever, I think the waiver wire is going to be okay for backfilling that with boring players because it is only 9-man lineups and our benches are only so deep. So that's kind of what I was thinking. I didn't necessarily expect to draft this many rookies, but there is a method to the madness, even though this entire league is madness. And so like when you're not practiced in something, it's hard to be especially disciplined when it's a format that you're not especially practiced in.
Scott, madness.
It's madness. Right? He's
It's
designed it this way.
This is for the people. How can it be madness? After you selected Lance McCullers, CJ Abrams, Dylan Floro, Chris, you selected Tyler Malley, then Clark Schmidt. I know he had 7 strikeouts here in his final spring start on Monday. He's throwing a new cutter. Will be in the Yankees rotation. Spencer Torkelson, Steven Matz. Matz is kind of a sneaky pick that we never talk about. He's been inconsistent throughout his career. But I think this late, he's better in a wins league because he pitches for the Cardinals. I think just drafting a pitcher on the Cardinals, you go 5 or 6 innings, good defense behind you. There's a good chance that pitcher is going to get you wins. So better in that format. But
yeah, exactly.
Lots of
also just has had a lot of trouble staying healthy over the years as well. So that's part of the issue too.
Mm-hmm. After Steven Matz, we are into round 18. Cal Quantrill, Andrew Heaney, Jurickson Profar. Jared Schuster. Sneaky pick there, Chris.
Yeah, I'm not super excited about Jared Schuster. Just like reading scouting reports and looking at the numbers, I think it's unlikely he's an impact player. But at this late, take a flyer on a little bit of a mystery box. I don't know how much of a mystery box like a lefty who throws 93 actually is anymore, but we'll see.
Hey, Scout loves Tyler Anderson, and he throws 90 miles per hour?
That's fair. That's
the
fair.
league loved Tyler Anderson last year.
Yeah.
I think no. I mean, Jared Schuster is not like a conventional prospect, so I think skepticism is warranted. If he thrives in the majors, it's because he has that deceptive lefty element going on.
Mm-hmm.
And watching some video from him this spring, like the way he hides the ball behind his hip, could be it. Could be what allows Jared Schuster's stuff to play out. And I'm saying this stuff isn't that good. The changeup legitimately is a terrific pitch. It's just the fastball velocity is nothing special. And the slider has apparently shown some improvement, but I was up. Oh, I got Cal Raleigh. That's fine. That's who I wanted to take anyway.
I thought you timed out on purpose.
No, I didn't. I just didn't. I was ignoring the voice that said you are up because I was listening to the sound of my own voice. I'm in love with that.
Who among us?
Yeah. But no, I mean, Cal Raleigh. Look, I had fallback options at catcher. I had a couple of them that I like for this format and that I just like in general. I'll go ahead and say them since it doesn't affect me anymore. Their names are Blake Sable and Logan O'Hoppe, who I think both have good on-base skills. O'Hoppe, great on-base skills. And I was fading O'Hoppe until we learned just today that Max Stassi's going to begin the year on the IL for the Angels. So O'Hoppe is in now. O'Hoppe's on the roster. I presume he'll be getting the majority of the starts, given his stature. And I would have been fine with him as my catcher, but I can't complain about getting Cal Raleigh this late. The the leading home run hitter at the position last year in a format where I want standout home run hitters probably above everything else. And there are clear downsides to Raleigh, but 279th overall. Can't complain.
Wow, that's nice little note there, Scott. Appreciate that on Max Stassi. Logan O'Hoppe is someone that we loved earlier on in the offseason. Big prospect for the Angels last year in the minors. Lots of power, big OBP bat. I mean, he had an OBP over 400 in the minor leagues last year. So in a format like this, 16 teams, you only start one catcher, but OBP, yeah, that will definitely play for Logan O'Hoppe. After Scott took Cal Raleigh, Luis Arias, Trevor Story. That's a good pick on Story. 281. We have 4 IL spots. Alex Vesia, who had great ratios for the Dodgers last year. I am up, and I was hoping for this gentleman to make it to me. It is David Peterson, who was named the Mets' 5th starter. I keep drafting him. I keep adding him wherever I can. I feel like I added him somewhere last night. Or no, maybe I drafted him in the head-to-head points listener league as well. But I am drafting a lot of David Peterson. He's got that nasty slider. He looked really good in the spring. So hoping that carries over. Pitches for a good team with the Mets, obviously, too. So that is something that can help as well. Let's take one more break, our final break here. And we'll talk about some Anthony Volpe team names because I need a team name, and I've got Anthony Volpe. We'll do that next on Fantasy Baseball Today. We got these on Twitter earlier today, and I'm probably going to need you to explain some of them because, duh, it's me. All right, so you see, this one doesn't work. Volpe fiction. I mean, if you want to do like the Volpe fiction thing, but
it works.
No,
yeah, Volpe fiction would work. Yeah,
but that's not how you say his name.
No, you could say Volpe fiction, and people know what you're going after. It's close enough.
All right.
I'm pretty harsh with team names, but I think that works.
All right. Episode 4, a new Volpe.
Sure.
Yeah, that one's a little worse.
But. It's got to be this next one, obviously. Volpe Gilmore.
That is, I've seen this tweet already. That's the one that sounds the best.
Yeah.
Of course, the one I like, Chris does not like. I don't know.
It's not especially clever, but it sounds the best.
Yeah, it does sound the best. I don't know if I could say this one, but hopefully I can. Big Volpes, huh? Well, see you later.
So that one,
I don't get that one.
Funny reference. It's the Dumb and Dumber line. Big gulps.
Oh.
But yeah, I mean, it just doesn't sound right if you say Volpe's name right.
Oh, okay. Well, feel free to correct me of how it's supposed to be said. Volpe Wheeze, Big Adventure.
Sure. Yeah, I get that one. How about this one?
I thought it was too much of a stretch.
You draft Volpe, you draft Max Muncy, the Volpe Man and Muncy. Boom.
I don't like team names that you have to read them 3 or 4 times to get it, because most people don't have the patience for that. They're just going to be like, whatever.
And the last one here is, I like the one that says some Volpe.
Now, I wouldn't have gotten that reference a month ago. But
I
have been binging The Sopranos, and it's Tony Soprano prefers his orange juice, the one that says some pulp, as opposed to lots of pulp or whatever it was.
What a fake
Carmelo
Soprano.
got him.
What a fake Sopranos fan I am. Jeez.
It's a deep cut, right? And so I appreciate that about it. That's probably my second favorite, but I think Volpe Gilmore is the winner there because it's more of a crowd pleaser.
Yeah, we'll continue workshopping this one. After I took David Peterson, oh man, I wanted to double tap Mets pitchers. That's not going to happen. Carlos Carrasco is gone. Daniel Hudson, Marco Gonzalez, Jock Peterson, Isaac Paredes. Pretty sure that's Isaac Paredes, actually. Apologies. It's around 19. How many rounds is this draft? I think it's 22.
We still have 4 rounds left, man.
It's been the longest draft.
This is I'm hitting a wall, man.
Should we keep broadcasting? I don't even know.
You've come this far.
Yeah, why not? It's around 19. Kenta Maeda, somebody I wrote up as a sleeper. I think eventually he can get back on track. It's been a very bad spring, though. I've got to point that out for Kenta Maeda.
Yes.
Matthew Boyd, it's been a resurgent spring, though he was scratched from his start the other day. And I don't think they revealed anything that was wrong with him. So that was kind of weird for Matthew Boyd. Seth Brown, followed by Eric Lauer. Jorge Soler, that's a sneaky pick. Because when he's right, he draws a good amount of walks. Should give you some pop. And as I mentioned on Friday's podcast, I think I have Soler in every one of my 5 outfielder leagues this year. So
he's your guy.
Really need that guy to come through this year. Please. A Christian Walker type bounce back from Jorge Soler. Let's make that happen. That would be amazing. I'm going to go ahead and take Kyle Bradish, who had a great spring until he didn't. He gave up like 8 runs in one start. So I know that he ranks very highly on Eno Saris's Stuff Plus metric. And, pitches in a good venue now in Camden. So
he had one horrible spring start that skewed his whole stat line, but the rest of the time he looked great and was limiting hits the same way he did down the stretch last season. You look at his game log at the end of last season, there were a couple near no hitters. There were a lot of starts with just 2 hits allowed. Just seems to have that Tristan McKenzie-like quality, does Kyle Bradish.
Yes, indeed. So hoping it works out for him. And the next pick after him was Justin Steele. I haven't drafted Justin Steele anywhere. I wonder if there should be more hype around him. I know he has a really good slider, but I feel like he has nothing else. And that's the issue for Justin Steele.
Yeah, the one pitch pitcher is always a tough one. I can't say I'm particularly enthusiastic about him.
With that being said, I've got to be fair. I drafted David Peterson, and he might not have anything other than a really good
We're at a point in the draft where I'm not particularly enthusiastic about anyone, including the person that I'm likely to take with my next pick. So, it is what it is.
After Justin Steele, Liam Hendricks goes off the board and should be able to stash him on the IL as he recovers from non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. Rooting for Liam Hendricks to get back out there whenever he can. Marcus Stroman, kind of a high floor pitcher at this point. Scott, you're back up. Give me some good news. Tell me you got a fun name to talk about. Someone you're about to draft.
Maybe. I'm not sure who I want, to be honest. I'm going to, because I have several choices for a couple of things. I'm going to go ahead and take my second baseman here, even though it might just be for 1 week, because it is a player I do have genuine enthusiasm for. So I'll be most hurt if I miss out on him. And that is Michael Massey.
Nice.
So he'll occupy second base for me until Miguel Vargas is able to slide over there. And, if Michael Massey ends up having the kind of breakout I think he could have, then maybe I'll just hold on to him, and Vargas will be somebody who I can shift around as needed.
Mm-hmm. All right. I've got Michael Massey in a few deeper draft and holds, so banking on him as well.
There is one kind of like Miguel Vargas. He's not eligible at second base yet, but he's going to pick it up in short order. He just got awarded a roster spot today. He's been one of the most underhyped rookies so far. I didn't need another rookie, but somebody could probably use this guy. Base stealer. Should I reveal the name? I'm going to reveal the name. Bryce.
No. Wait, did you say it?
I said it.
Oh, you said it. I think you did say it. Bryce Terang?
Bryce Terang, yeah, of the Brewers. So Joey Weimer didn't make it. Sal Frelick didn't make it. Bryce Terang did. And I think you could put up Thairo Estrada type numbers as a rookie. Being there as their primary second baseman, will retain shortstop eligibility from his time in the minors. Might sit some against lefties, but if he performs well, that'll be less and less, I presume.
Mm-hmm. I do have a little skepticism about the power, Scott. I know Thairo Estrada got to double-digit homers last year. I don't know if that's in the range of outcomes for Bryce Terang. But
he did a AAA last year.
Okay,
got to 12. Right.
Yeah, I know he's fast, so should definitely steal a few bags. I'm really interested to see how the Brewers mix it up early in the season in terms of just playing time, because they have a few different ways that they can do things with Luis Arias either at third or second, playing Bryce Terang at second base. Brian Anderson is on the team, so they could use him at third or right field. So they've got a few things there that they can kind of mess around with.
And I took Bryce Terang because
I talked you into it.
Well, he's someone that I've needed to move up anyway. And I was going to take Yusei Kikuchi, who just got taken a pick before mine. I was trying to figure out if I could make him last another round, and turns out I couldn't. So that's probably for the best. I probably need to be protected from Yusei Kikuchi at this point because he's done a lot of damage to a lot of fantasy teams of mine over the last few years.
But when I was hedging on my last pick and decided to just go ahead and take Michael Massey, I was hedging between Yusei Kikuchi and this guy, Mitch Keller. I thought they were the last of the two big risers at starting pitcher.
Kind of a Spider-Man meme there.
Yeah, in
Those
terms
two
of
guys for
taking
me.
us out in the past. But Mitch Keller, I don't know exactly what's going on with Yusei Kikuchi for him to be missing bats at the ridiculous rate he has this spring. Mitch Keller is one of several pitchers who has a cutter, and it may have been enough to round out his arsenal. His strikeout rate has been impressive this year. His cutter, he's basically led with the cutter. It's been his lead pitch.
Mm-hmm.
I know in his most recent start, it was responsible for 6 of his 12 whiffs on just 77 pitches. So good whiff rate there from Mitch Keller. And because it's a quality start league, I don't have to care that he's pitching for the Pirates. I mean, I could say the same for the Graham Ashcraft pick. That's
right.
Pitchers on bad teams get elevated in a quality start league.
Relatively speaking, yeah.
I did want to point out with Yusei Kikuchi, Scott, you mentioned not sure what he's doing differently. I believe I saw that he's throwing his changeup more this spring. And last year, he only used it 13% of the time, but it had a 39.6% whiff rate and a 116 batting average against. So
he's always gotten, his strikeout rate last year was massive. It was like 124 strikeouts in 100 innings or something. It was huge. It was just,
he has to throw strike.
He gets hit so hard.
Yeah.
Like his expected WOBA on his fastball was like 420. His expected WOBA on his cutter was like 540, which is really bad. So yeah, that's the problem for Yusei Kikuchi. He's always had good swing and miss stuff. Last year, he had a whiff rate of like 30% or more on all of his pitches. Basically, it's just when he doesn't get whiffs, he gets crushed.
Who is Miggy's bomber? Miggy's bombers. Alfredo. You were looking at my queue because I had one player left, and it was Michael King. No, good pick. Obviously, coming back from elbow surgery last year with the Yankees, and he was really, really good. So, see if he can carry that over again. I'm going to go ahead and take a hitter. I don't have a hitter on my bench yet, and I've been intrigued by Nick Gordon. He has dual eligibility, second base and outfield, so covers me at a few spots. If Jonathan India doesn't bounce back the way I think he could, or if Garrett Mitchell gets off to a slow start, I could throw Nick Gordon in there. I think he's going to play early in the season. Sounds like the Twins are going to use Byron Buxton at DH early on. So I saw Nick Gordon started at center field on Monday. He could play a little second base while Polanco's banged up too. So I am intrigued. Someone who hit the ball hard last year and has openly admitted he's kind of selling out to try and lift the ball and hit it harder. So we'll see. With Nick Gordon, after I took him, you saw, it's a good pick. Forgot about him. I got to move him up the rankings. James Outman, named to the Dodgers opening day roster, and I'm trying to think of the words are in my brain, but they're just not coming out at this point.
What is that day when all the teams start playing again?
I am losing it. James Outman. I am excited about James Outman. There was a quote from Dave Roberts where he said, we wouldn't have put James Outman on the roster if he wasn't going to play. So he's a left-handed bat. I think if nothing else, if nothing more, he's going to start on the strong side of a platoon, either in center or one of the corners in the outfield. So I like Outman, and he had really good numbers in the minors last year. So very good pick. I'm a fan. After he went, Roansy Contreras. Sorry, Chris. I feel like that's the first draft you haven't gotten him in.
Yeah, he was on my queue for sure.
Michael Fulmer goes. Could be the closer-ish for the Cubs.
Mm-hmm.
Michael Kopech, who hasn't looked great this spring, and I think he's admitted he's not 100% coming back from knee surgery.
Yeah.
Velocity has been down for him. Zach Eflin with Tampa Bay. Their biggest free agent signing in team history. We'll see if it means anything or not. And we are into round 21. Let's go, boys. 2 rounds left.
Yeah, see, even the fact it's a 22-round draft. Come on, Heath. What is this? Who does a 22-round draft?
Yeah.
Oh, that's the appropriate way to do a draft. You should never end a draft on an odd-numbered round.
I have heard people say this.
Heath is right on this one. No, just from a fairness standpoint. The first pick's going to get the first pick in more rounds.
Right.
Yeah, but
in an odd numbered round.
Who cares who gets the first pick in round 21? Honestly,
Heath does.
Yeah,
Heath is a man of honor and integrity.
It's a man of something, all right.
For anyone listening who, look, I'm sure there's a lot of crossover between FBT and FFT listenership. So tweet at Heath Cummings. I think it's at Heath Cummings SR on Twitter, and let him know that we had the For the People draft tonight. And I don't know, let him know whose team you like the best so far in this one. If you could remember all of our picks. I mean, there's only been, 325 of them so far. All right, let's catch people up. Austin Meadows, Mike Clevenger, AJ Puck. That's kind of sneaky. I like that.
That's a good one.
Alex Kirilloff. Scott.
That's fine.
It won't be yours. Carlos Santana. Like the Yasmani Grandal pick earlier. He will draw walks. I just don't know if Carlos Santana will do anything else this season. I am up. I felt like I saw a player that I wanted earlier. Now I have no idea who it is. So now I probably could use another. I think I only have 2 relievers so far. And I know that Scott's probably loading up to take his reliever. So, oh, man. I don't think I'm going to have enough time to figure this out.
Oh, man.
Uh-oh. I'm on tilt.
Sticking, dude.
I'm on tilt. I saw a player somewhere that I wanted to take. Who was it? Uh-oh. I'm going to just go ahead and take Andrew McCutchen. He's going to walk, right? A little bit of power and speed. Whatever.
He's going to do something.
Yeah. I'm going to go and look at some projections and figure out who that reliever I wanted was. There he goes. He's up at the top. Crap. Should have taken him. Any Hoosers. I took Andrew McCutchen. It's kind of a boring pick. Scott, do you have any relievers yet?
I do not. Am I going to change that before the draft ends?
Oh, so you lied. You said you were gonna use your last 3 picks.
Well,
I said he wasn't going to take one until the last 3 picks. Doesn't necessarily mean he's going to take one with his last 3 picks.
I'm pretty sure.
I said I might just take one with my last 3 picks. I think we can. Nobody's listening this deep into the podcast anyway. But
shout out to those watching us, Scott. There's 259 people watching us live on YouTube right now.
Oh my gosh, what is wrong with them?
You're complaining about live viewership. What's going on?
Nobody takes those comments from me seriously. They take them about as seriously as I've taken this draft because it's an unserious league. Haha.
Anywho,
take that.
It's a hate fest. Hate.
Luis Rengifo is off the board.
Pedal to the metal, guys. Let's close it out strong. Oswald Peraza.
Someone just got auto drafted in round 21. I mean, come on. We're using a whole minute here. Let's go.
But they're not going to take the whole minute next time. That's the
all right. I had analysis for my next pick. I don't know why Eric Swanson isn't appreciated more as a setup man. I mean, clearly the Blue Jays appreciate him. They traded Teoscar Hernandez for him this offseason. Eric Swanson last year with the Mariners, 168 ERA, 0.91 whip, 11.7 K per 9. And he is like the 8th inning guy for the Blue Jays. They have well-defined bullpen roles there. And so hopefully he racks up a lot of holds for me with good ratios.
I think that is a very good pick in a saves plus holds format. After that, Josh Lowe, John Burley.
Oh, Josh Lowe did get picked. I was really struggling with, I wanted Josh Lowe, but I needed relievers because I only had one before I picked Hector Neris just now. So now I guess I'm free to just take another reliever.
Mm-hmm.
Feels great. No, Josh is someone who, remember this time a year ago, had a ton of hype, then struggled really badly with the Rays, but he made their opening day roster. So
nice.
I think he's worth keeping an eye on.
Shout out to the Score Sheet League, man. Big day. I drafted Bryce Terang and Josh Lowe in Score Sheet. So, all right. Gonna get some playing time out of those guys. Sweet. After you took Hector Neris, Chris, Brandon Belt. All right. Not bad. Some walks and some power, some OBP there. Kyle Finnegan, likely the closer for the Nationals / fireman reliever. Sean Manaea. What's been going on with Sean Manaea? I feel like his first start in the spring, he was hitting 95, and then I didn't hear anything after that.
I think it maintained. He just didn't perform all that well, so it's hard to get too jazzed about it. He was another Driveline baseball product. Was Sean Manaea. I believe that's where the velocity came from. Hopefully I'm not speaking out of turn here. But yeah, I mean, it was hard to muster much enthusiasm for him because the results weren't really there.
All right. Yeah. Looking at his spring training numbers, 4.08 ERA, 0.96 whip. Not terrible. 14 strikeouts and 17 2/3 for Sean Manaea. All right. We're really cruising now. Here we go. Keibert Ruiz, Logan O'Hoppe, great pick. Sal Frelick, Jose Alvarado. Was that you, Chris?
That was me, Jose Alvarado. Yes, a very, very high strikeout rate relief pitcher that I can throw in there if I want to compete in saves and holds.
All righty. Then Michael Brantley, Robert Suarez, who looks like he's going to start on the IL for the Padres. And Scott, you got another reliever.
Brian Abreu. He really found another gear down the stretch last year. Final 2 months of the season, a .76 ERA, about an even one whip, and the strikeouts. Well, the strikeouts are going to shock you. 13.3 K per nine, and was working, late innings. He had 5 holds in September alone. So hopefully Brian Abreu can be another cheap play here for holds. And if he's not, I'm sure I'll be able to turn to some Jimmy Herget type off the waiver wire.
All right. Well, it all worked out because the reliever I wanted last round was Ronaldo Lopez.
Yeah, it's a good one. Yeah,
yep.
I'm surprised I overlooked him, actually. I guess I thought he was already gone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, good pick.
Thank you, sir. And the other picks recently, Taylor Rogers, John Schreiber. Okay.
Had a good year last year. I know about relievers mostly because of Score Sheet, and then probably like 2 people listening know what Score Sheet is. But it's a tremendous way to play fantasy behind only CBSSports.com as far as I'm concerned. It's more like you simulate games based on the previous week's results. So you have a full bullpen, a starting lineup, and it forces you to know relievers because you need to build a full bullpen.
Yeah, I know you mentioned the other day that Ron Marinaccio is your closer on like 3.
Yeah, you can designate any pitcher, whatever role you want. So
yeah,
I got Marinaccio, somebody you could take here for holds potentially.
He's still out there. I thought you were going to take him.
No, I went Brian Abreu instead.
But
there's going to be a lot of Marinaccios on
yes, there will.
The waiver wire.
Too many Marinaccios.
Marinaccio's got the cheese.
Hey, after Ronaldo Lopez, Adalberto Mondesi, Danny Jansen, Brooks Raley, nice pick. Ellie Harris Montero, very nice pick. Was named the Rockies MVP of spring training, followed by Luis Garcia. Which Luis Garcia is that? Not that I should care, but
it's the shortstop. It's the Nationals, Luis Garcia.
Because I did want to point out with Robert Suarez starting on the IL. The other Luis Garcia is probably the setup man for the Padres. For the first
3 players with identical names.
What can go wrong? I want to give a shout out to in the chat right now. This is Aubrey, and I hung in there. I am 8 years old, by the way. Thanks for letting us play. That is fantastic. I believe his father's name is Chris. So Chris and Aubrey drafting together there. It's really late, so make sure you get some sleep there. And
hopefully they're on the West Coast.
Yeah,
there is someone in the draft who is drafting from Great Britain, and it's like 5 a.m. there. So
wow,
thanks for hanging out.
That is awesome. Yes, and thank you to everyone watching us live on YouTube. I mean, still 250 people watching us live. Are like 2 hours and 40 minutes in. I don't know. Should we recap the teams or should we just wrap it up, boys? What do you think? I'll let you decide.
Don't ask me that question.
Let's recap the teams.
Thank you,
All
Scott.
right, let's recap the teams, and we'll start with Chris, who is drafting 13th overall.
Woo.
And what was your team name again? Oh yeah, Lavender Haze.
Yes.
And we are going to start at the top. Will Smith, the catcher, Paul Goldschmidt, Brandon Lau, Spencer Steer, Jeremy Pena, Chris Bryant, Alec Thomas, Riley Green, Mitch Haniger. That is the offense. I really like the way it started, Chris. And then,
Well, there's a player missing who's pretty important, who will be there in about 3 weeks, and that's Fernando Tatis, who I moved to the bench just for my own edification while I'm building, so I knew where my specific holes were. Now, if Jeremy Pena is worth starting, I should be able to put Fernando Tatis in an outfield spot, and that'll make it all feel a little better.
You didn't seem to put much emphasis on stolen bases. I mean, Tatis should help with that when he gets back, but doesn't look like a category you're going to compete in often.
Yeah, I mean, I'm hoping like if Alec Thomas plays every day, hopefully he'll give me some steals. Jeremy Pena should give me a decent amount of steals. Maybe Riley Green will chip in, but yeah, it's not a great stolen bases team for sure.
let's move over to the pitching staff. And wow, the two names up at the top there. This is a classic Chris Towers pitching staff. No guts, no glory. Chris Sale, Jacob deGrom, Ryan Helsley, Framber Valdez. You backed it up there. That is, he's about the safest innings eater outside of Sandy Alcantara that you can find. Trevor Rogers, Reed Detmers, and Hayden Wesneski. So you got technically potentially three aces here, Chris. deGrom, Sale, and Framber. And then you did your old wait and pick up some upside pitchers later on.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty good pitching staff. I would say, obviously absent Fernando Tatis, I think the pitching staff is probably more of a strength than the hitting. But, with Sale and deGrom as the anchors, it could go, well, I guess Framber is probably more of an anchor than Sale, but, it could definitely go south fairly quickly. So a lot of upside, a lot of risk there.
All right. Well, I mentioned you got Helsley as one reliever, and then on the bench, you've got Hector Neris and Jose Alvarado, hoping to chip in some holds from those guys as well. Let's move over to Scott's team, and was drafting 10th overall. Starts with Cal Raleigh, big dumper. Freddie Freeman. That's
a terrible nickname.
It's the best nickname in sports.
That's a fun nickname. Come on. Michael Massey at second base, Jordan Walker at third, O'Neill Cruz, Lars Nootbaar, Corbin Carroll, Oscar Colas, Miguel Vargas, who will gain second base eligibility. Any other prospects on the bench? Yeah, Ezekiel Tovar. You got Eugenio Suarez for some pop there. Jake Fraley. This is kind of like Chris's pitching staff, where there is some risk, but if there is upside as well. So it's very, very hit or miss.
I mean, I took a very safe hitter in round one with Freddie Freeman. Wasn't able to play the usual position scarcity game because I just didn't see the value there at 10th overall. And the fact that I didn't take a hitter in round two, I took Corbin Burns instead, meant that, it's kind of a team I'm not used to. It's probably the first time where I didn't take a stud third baseman in round two and still ended up with one I feel pretty good about in Jordan Walker. Obviously not a proven commodity. Obviously not a lot of proven commodities anywhere within my hitter ranks. But as I said, at some point in the middle of this marathon, because there are only 9 hitter spots to fill, I think the waiver wire should be. I think it should have some decent options, like decent boring options available at points during the season. If I can't find a way to fill out the 9 hitter spots from this group of 12 hitters that I drafted.
And I will say, like, it's an uncomfortable draft format anyway. given how rarely we're doing OBP drafts, how rarely we're doing head-to-head or saves and holds drafts, how rarely we're doing 16 team drafts. So like there's something to be said for just leaning into the discomfort. And were you ever going to feel good about a team in this league?
Well,
given how uncertain it is with the categories, it's it might be a smart strategy.
That's I think I said it half jokingly a little later in the marathon, but when it's a format I'm not all that practiced in, it's hard to be that disciplined in it. And I play in another league kind of like that. It's my home league. It's the league I've played in the longest, so I have a little more practice in that sense. But it's obviously not when I'm drafting over and over again the same year. It's a 10-team head-to-head points league where strikeouts are worth -1 for hitters and +1 for pitchers. It's usually -0.5 for hitters, +0.5 for pitchers. And it makes a big difference, especially in a league that shallow. It really thins out the hitting pool, especially. And so you find yourself just kind of selling out for format specialists in a way that you'd laugh if you saw someone else do it. But just the when you're not that practiced, and it's hard to know what to anticipate what's going to happen, and you just kind of go with your gut. And so, I also joke that I'm not taking this draft all that seriously. I mean, I want to win, but at the same time, because it's not a format I'm that practiced in, it's the path to winning isn't as clear to me.
Let's take a look at your pitching staff, Scott, which I actually like quite a bit. You wound up with Corbin Burns, Robbie Ray, George Kirby. You balance it out with some high floor and then upside pitchers with Tyler Anderson and Merrill Kelly, 2 of the Mount Rushmore. You've got Graham Ashcraft in there. Mitch Keller is on the bench. And yes, that is all the pitchers. And then starting pitchers, at least. And then your relievers, Eric Swanson and Brian Abreu, who should give you some holds. Lance McCullers as well. We have 4 IL spots in this league.
Yep. I'm going to pick up another reliever probably once I IL McCullers.
Scott, I noticed that your pitching staff was better in the draft that we did last week as well in the head-to-head points listener league. Is this like a conscious change throughout draft season where you wanted to wind up with more pitching? Because
no.
All right, so it just worked out that way.
I mean, who was the first pitcher I drafted in the points league? I think it was quite a bit later. I think it was I don't remember exactly. It was like Zach Greinke and Zach Gallen and Robbie Ray back to back in round 6 and 7 of the points league. So I clearly waited there, and it just happened that the pitching staff came out pretty strong. In this case, and I mean maybe partly in the other case too, just deeper into the draft, it may be, okay, we're drafting against podcast listeners who've been hearing me say all draft season, I'm fading pitchers this year. I'm not investing big in pitchers this year. I'm pushing the envelope. I'm waiting as long as I can. And I'm always happy with the way my pitching staff turns out. And so it may have just been the case of everyone else kind of fading pitching more than usual because they've had that message hammered home. And so I was just kind of taking advantage of players who were falling. It was a long con, basically, is what I'm saying. And everybody felt, no, it wasn't really. I legitimately am fading pitching this year. But yeah, I think this pitching staff came together nicely. And I don't regret taking Burns in round 2. It's the earliest I've taken a pitcher in a snake draft this year. But I think given the sort of the weirdness of the league and how few hitter spots there are to fill, and because it's such a deep league, how deep we had to go into the pitcher ranks, I think it worked out fine. I think Burns, in retrospect, was the appropriate pick there for me.
I actually just got the draft recap email. Nobody looks better coming out of the draft than Fernando Tatis and Lavender Haze.
There you go.
Woo!
Winner, chicken dinner for Chris.
Stop the vote.
All right, let's wrap up with my team. I was drafting 6th overall and really leaned into the OBP aspect of this draft. We'll start up top. I've got MJ Melendez, Matt Olson, Jonathan India, Alex Bregman, Anthony Volpe, Hunter Renfroe, Juan Soto, Garrett Mitchell, and JD Martinez. it feels like I'm missing a player, but maybe that's just because I pulled players up the board for OBP. I think it's fine. I don't know that there's many standout across the board contributors. I think there's a good amount of power. Tried to chip in some speed with Anthony Volpe and Garrett Mitchell. It's okay.
No, I think it's solid. I think it's the best hitting group of any of our 3 teams.
All right. Well, thank you, Chris. I appreciate it. Let's take a look at the pitching staff. I took Yu Darvish and Max Fried back to back in rounds 4 and 5, looking for a bunch of quality starts out of those two. Also drafted Jeffrey Springs and Drew Rasmussen, my Tampa Bay Rays combo. Hopefully they can go a little bit deeper into the starts. Love it. The cat feeder just went off. We're feeding cats. That means it's close to midnight. What are we doing? It's pretty late here. Who else did I get? I got John Gray. I got Jamison Tyone. I got David Peterson, Kyle Bradish. So Tyone and who else did I mention? Yeah, Tyone's kind of the boring guy. And then Bradish and Peterson for a little bit of upside on the bench. The relievers, Jason Adam, and AJ Minter and Ronaldo Lopez. So I got relievers on good teams that I think are going to have great ratios and strike. So
I like your team best on paper.
Yeah,
I do.
Yeah, I think so.
I agree with Chris. The hitting is really strong, and the pitching. I mean, like I said, it's hard. I feel like it's hard to mess up pitching this year, but to the extent you can do it, you didn't do it. You got 2 high-end types in Max Fried and Yu Darvish. Jeffrey Springs has high-end potential. Some would argue Drew Rasmussen does too, though I'm skeptical of that. Maybe I wish you had a little more. Your starting pitching depth isn't that bad. You got Jamison Tyone and Kyle Bradish on their bench. On your bench, they could be good sources of quality starts.
Yep. David Peterson.
So it's good.
I miss John Gray too, who, I mean, if he's going right, he probably should give you quality starts as well. So
was your second round pick? Refresh my memory. Was it Matt Olson?
Yep.
Yeah.
And then I took Bregman in the 3rd.
And obviously Olson, you wouldn't have considered him if it wasn't an OBP league as early as round 2. But I think it worked out for you because you got that. I felt like I was even for devoting my first round pick to Freddie Freeman. I felt like I was kind of chasing power the whole draft and never quite able to catch up. And Freddie Freeman, who knows if he'll be more like the 20 homer guy he was last year or the 30 homer guy we've known him to be in more recent years. But if it's the former, then I'm going to really need a good outcome for O'Neal Cruz, a good outcome for like Lars Nootbaar as a power hitter. Or I might be struggling to keep up. And what I think is the most important hitting category, well, period, but especially in a head-to-head categories league, because it's if you have a bunch of like just 30 to 40 homer type sluggers, it's not likely you're going to lose that category very often. It's a little more predictable than stolen bases or batting average.
All right. Well, we're going to wrap there. It's been a very long night. Thank you to everyone for sticking around and listening to the end of both parts of this podcast. For Scott and Chris, I am Frank. Thanks as always for watching and listening to Fantasy Baseball Today. Please make sure to follow and leave a 5-star rating on Apple or Spotify, and we'll be back again tomorrow. Bye-bye.